It begins with stillness, a quiet that isn't empty, but full of something waiting, not urgency, not noise, just a gentle pull, like the tide moving under the moon. In this quiet, questions float to the surface, softly, like leaves drifting on a stream. They don't demand to be answered. They only ask to be noticed. There are places in science where understanding fades into shadow, places where even our most precise instruments fall silent, the corners where the known world ends, not with walls, but with fog. In that fog, the stories begin. Ancient bones found where they shouldn't be, lights that dance without a source, voices carried through deep canyons, echoing without origin. These are not tales of monsters or miracles. They are traces, gentle, persistent, of something not yet explained. A fossil too old for its layer, a map too accurate for its time, a structure built with tools no longer remembered. They are not mistakes. They are messages, perhaps accidents that ask to be listened to. They exist regardless of belief. That is the first mystery. Science, in its quiet dignity, builds around what it can measure. It listens to patterns, to data, to proof. But even science, vast and curious, pauses at the edge of certain questions. Why do galaxies move the way they do? What hums beneath the ocean floor? What happened to the people who walked away from their cities, never to return, never to be found? We journey not to solve these, but to walk beside them, to trace the outlines of the unknown, without rushing to fill them in. The mystery itself has weight. It grounds us. It humbles. It reminds us that we are small, and that smallness is not weakness. It is permission to wonder. This is not a documentary about conclusions. It is a gentle wandering through the landscapes of uncertainty, a walk through deserts where stones align in sacred geometry, through jungles where pyramids sleep beneath vines, through Arctic ice where signals still drift unheard. It is a kind of listening, a soft focus on the questions that remain when certainty has gone to bed. We will speak of ancient civilizations and vanished technology, of stars that flicker without reason, of maps that whisper of continents now lost. But we will not rush. This is a quiet hour, a safe place for awe. What we begin now is not a journey of explanation, but of presence. You are not required to believe or even to understand, only to rest beside the unknown and to feel it breathing gently at the edges of thought. So close your eyes, if you wish. Let the unanswered unfold around you like mist. Let your thoughts soften. Beneath the surface of the known, there is room for you. There always has been. It begins softly, a sound just beyond the edge of hearing. Not a whistle, not a roar. Something lower, steadier, stranger. A hum, persistent and patient. Like the world is holding a single note beneath all the noise we usually hear. People have described it in many ways. Like a distant engine, like thunder stuck on repeat, like a deep breath that never ends. It is not imagined. It is not mechanical. It is real, but no one can agree on where it comes from or why it's there. The Taos hum is just one name among many. Across continents, across oceans, people report the same sensation, a low-frequency sound. Felt as much as heard, impossible to trace, impossible to escape. Some hear it at night. Some in silence, some only in certain rooms, certain towns, certain moments. It wakes people from sleep. It lingers behind the walls. It pulses in the earth, steady and slow, like a heartbeat turned inside out. Scientists have tested soil, sky, and sea. They've buried sensors, built models, mapped tectonic plates. Still, the hum continues. Still, it refuses to be pinned down. There are theories, of course. Wind through distant vents, undersea pressure, natural resonance. But none of these fully explain why only certain people hear it, why it starts and stops without warning, why no device can clearly record it, why it seems to vibrate not just the air, but the body. Some suggest it's inside us, not around us. Others say it is the earth itself, humming with age. What if it is geological, the slow shifting of ancient plates beneath our feet? What if it is magnetic, the low song of the planet's field, brushing against our skin? What if it is biological, our own hearing, tuned to frequencies we no longer understand? And what if, just quietly, what if it is none of these? In New Mexico, in the quiet town of Taos, the hum has been studied for years. But like a shy creature, it slips away whenever they get too close. It is as if the hum only lives when no one is looking. The more we try to capture it, the more it dissolves. No origin, no source, just the gentle tremble of something old. It is not dangerous. It does not harm, but it does not rest. In cities, it hides beneath traffic and fans. In forests, beneath bird call and breeze. But in the stillness of night, when everything else fades, it comes forward. And you feel it, not in the ears, but in the ribs. Like the earth is speaking very softly, and you've just tuned in. Could it be language? Could it be memory? Could it be nothing but chance? Maybe the hum is a reminder that not everything must be loud to be noticed, that not every question demands an answer. Sometimes, the most enduring mysteries are the quietest ones. They don't explain themselves. They simply stay. So listen if you can, not with your ears, with your presence, with a part of you that feels without needing to understand. The hum is not waiting to be solved. It is only waiting to be heard. In the golden light of ancient Syracuse, there lived a man who saw the world not just as it was, but as it could be. Archimedes, mathematician, inventor, philosopher. His name echoes through time, carried by formulas and stories alike. But beyond the school books, beyond the well-known discoveries, there are whispers, hints of a workshop filled with impossible machines, a laboratory that may have held secrets far beyond its age. He spoke of levers and pulleys, of spheres floating on water, of principles that still shape the world today. But some believe he went further, that behind closed doors, his mind wandered into places modern science only reached centuries later. Tales of burning mirrors, machines of war, and mechanisms so intricate they defy even current engineering drift around his legacy like dust motes in sunlight. There's a story of the death ray, polished bronze mirrors that concentrated sunlight to ignite enemy ships from afar. Legend or possibility. Tests in modern times have shown such a device could work under the right conditions. Then there's the Archimedes screw, still used today to move water uphill. A design so clever, so enduring, it almost feels like it didn't belong to its time. But beyond these are rumors of lost manuscripts, hidden scrolls, diagrams burned with the libraries that once held them. His ideas may have reached into calculus, long before Newton or Leibniz. Some of his writings, only rediscovered in the 20th century, contain notes and margins, tiny clues suggesting a deeper, more complex system of thought. What else did he see, sitting in silence, watching water curve and light bend? Did he imagine flight, electricity, engines not yet built? The workshop of Archimedes, as described in fragments and folklore, becomes a place of myth, a room of wooden models and brass arms, gears turning under candlelight, a mind stretching out towards something vast, unshaped, unnamed. He lived in an age without steel or electricity, yet his ideas felt electric, moving ahead of their time, as if tuned to a different frequency. The Siege of Syracuse, his final chapter, saw many of his creations turned into tools of defense. Giant cranes to lift ships, catapults with uncanny accuracy, war machines born from abstract geometry, science used not to conquer, but to survive. And then silence. His death came not from age, but from a soldier's sword against orders. A mind like his, extinguished not by nature, but by war. And with him, perhaps, 1,000 ideas that never reached the page. What was left behind became legend. What was lost became mystery. But somewhere in the ruins of time, the echoes remain. A diagram scribbled on a wax tablet, a formula scratched into stone, a mechanism buried under layers of dust and ash. Not everything he saw could be written. Not everything he understood could be taught. Some knowledge lives not in books, but in glimpses, the curve of water, the weight of silence, the shape of the stars. The lost lab of Archimedes may never be found. But in every equation that dares to reach beyond its time, in every moment when science feels like magic, he is there, quietly watching, still thinking just beyond the edge of what we know. High in the Himalayas, where the wind moves slowly and the air feels thin with silence, there's a lake. Small, still, and frozen for most of the year. It might pass unnoticed by those climbing higher. But when the ice thaws, the lake reveals something that no one can forget. Beneath the shallow water, hundreds of bones rest in quiet disarray. Skulls, ribs, femurs, all preserved by cold and time. They call it Skeleton Lake. Rupkund sits over 16,000 feet above sea level, far from cities and roads, hidden among snow-covered peaks. There are no nearby settlements, no ancient battlefield nearby. And yet here they lie, the remains of more than 300 people scattered around the lake's edge, some partially buried, others still floating just below the surface. Their presence raises a simple question with no simple answer. Who were they? Local legend speaks of a royal pilgrimage, a king and queen cursed by the gods after disrespecting a sacred site. Others believe it was an army, lost and frozen, their mission forgotten. The British, who first documented the lake in the 1940s, thought perhaps it was a result of a landslide or an avalanche, a mass death by nature's force. But the truth is stranger still. Modern DNA testing brought unexpected results. The bones came from different groups, different time periods, even different continents. Some were related, traveling as family. Others had no known connection. A few appear to be of Mediterranean descent, a mystery in itself, given the lake's remote location in northern India. What brought these people here, from such far places, to this quiet bowl of ice? And how did they die? Many of the skulls bear similar fractures, blunt force trauma, round and clean, like something heavy fell from above. Scientists now believe they were struck by hail, massive, deadly hailstones the size of coconuts. Caught in the open, with no shelter, the group may have died within minutes. Their bodies left behind to freeze, untouched by animals, buried beneath decades of snow. Yet questions remain. Why were they there? What drew them to such a desolate, dangerous place? Theories speak of ancient festivals, hidden trade routes, lost rituals. Some say it was a sacred journey gone wrong. Others wonder if Rupkund was never meant to be found, a place of ritual death, a burial ground for the forgotten. The lake does not answer. It simply lies still, its surface like glass, covering centuries of silence. Hikers who visit speak of the air there, how quiet it is, how the wind moves like breath through trees that no longer grow. The bones have become part of the place, too many to be removed, too old to be named. Every summer, the ice thins again. The bones shift. Some rise to the surface. Others remain hidden. The dead, whoever they were, return in pieces, as if reminding us that history does not always rest in peace. Sometimes it floats. Perhaps Rupkund is not just a lake. Perhaps it is a question carved into the mountains, asked once and never answered. Not all mysteries are waiting to be solved. Some are waiting to be felt. A quiet awe, a shiver not from the cold, but from something deeper. In the end, Skeleton Lake offers no story that ends cleanly. Only 1,000 footsteps that led upward and never returned. Only a sky that once dropped stones like judgment. Only the stillness of ice, holding them all in place, as if waiting for someone to understand. On a piece of gazelle skin, drawn with careful hands over 5 centuries ago, a map was made. It's not large, not covered in golden compass roses or ornate sea monsters, yet it holds a mystery that continues to echo through time. The Pyrie Reis map, created in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral with access to lost charts, depicts lands that should not have been known, coastlines that had not yet been explored, and one contour in particular that defies explanation, a shape at the bottom of the map that resembles the coast of Antarctica without ice. Antarctica was not officially discovered until 1820, and its icy barrier, stretching thick and impenetrable, has hidden its true coastline for thousands of years. Only with modern satellite imaging and seismic data have scientists begun to understand what lies beneath. And yet, the Pyrie Reis map, drawn in the Age of Sail, shows something strikingly close, a detailed, accurate representation of the continent's edge as it would appear without ice. Where did this information come from? Pyrie Reis himself claimed to have based his map on earlier sources, ancient charts, perhaps from Greek or Phoenician origins, that have been passed down, copied, and preserved through centuries of trade and conquest. He names 20 sources, including one said to date back to the time of Alexander the Great. These are maps that no longer exist. If they did, they are lost. But their echoes live in the contours of this strange skin-bound document. What makes the map even more unsettling is its accuracy. The latitude of South America, the placement of African ports, the angles of islands yet to be fully surveyed. For a time when ships followed stars and coastlines, the Pyre Reefs map feels oddly modern, almost as if its creator was copying something he didn't fully understand. Some argue that the resemblance to Antarctica is coincidence, that what we see is simply the lower curve of South America drawn in error. But side-by-side comparisons show details that are hard to dismiss. Bays, peninsulas, the width of certain features that match beneath the ice sheet. A few scientists, even cautiously, have agreed that if the map does show Antarctica, it shows it as it existed thousands of years ago, before it froze over. This leads to a deeper question. Who could have mapped a continent covered in ice for over 6,000 years? What civilization had the tools to survey coastlines from the sea or the sky in an age lost a record? And why did those maps disappear, surviving only in fragments copied by hands that could not explain them? The map has been studied, debated, dismissed, and reconsidered. Some claim it proves advanced ancient knowledge, perhaps even technology we don't fully comprehend. Others call it a fascinating coincidence, an artifact of guesswork and imperfect preservation. But the shape remains, the coastline remains, and the silence of history continues. There's a strange poetry in the idea that ancient minds once charted lands we only rediscovered with satellites. That knowledge is not always a straight line forward. Sometimes it loops, vanishes, reappears. Sometimes it's buried under ice or tucked into a forgotten scroll, waiting to be seen again. The Pyre Reefs map is not just an object. It is a question, a boundary. It challenges our timeline. It invites us to wonder not just how the world was seen, but who was looking, and from where. In a quiet museum, the map lies flat now, under glass, its ink fading gently, its curves still whispering. It should not exist, and yet it does. And in that contradiction, mystery lies. Far beyond what telescopes can clearly see, past the spiraling arms of galaxies and the flicker of ancient stars, something is moving, not slowly, not randomly. Entire clusters of galaxies, stretching across billions of light years, are drifting in the same direction, as if drawn toward an unseen force beyond the edge of the known universe. Scientists call this phenomenon dark flow. It began with small signals, detected through the study of cosmic microwave background radiation, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang. Tiny fluctuations in temperature, slight motions in massive objects, hinted at something strange. These galaxies weren't just moving from expansion. They were being pulled, not by anything we could see, but by something beyond the horizon of space itself. The direction is specific. The movement is steady. No known structure, no visible galaxy, no concentration of dark matter explains it. The pull comes from a place we cannot observe, outside the cosmic boundary where light has not yet reached us. A place where physics, as we know it, may not apply. Some suggest it could be a great attractor, a dense, massive region hidden behind clouds of dust and stars. But others believe it's something more profound, that this flow might point to another universe, a parallel cosmos brushing up against our own. Perhaps what we call the edge is only a veil, and behind it lies another reality with its own stars, its own time, its own gravity, leaking into ours. Theories multiply, each more speculative than the last. Some physicists speak of a multiverse, countless bubble universes floating in a larger fabric, sometimes pulling or bleeding into each other. Others propose ancient remnants of cosmic collisions, scars from when universes collided in a time before time. And a few quietly ask whether our model of the universe is flawed, whether what we call gravity, expansion, and space might behave differently at scales we've never imagined. But for all the equations and theories, the motion continues. Quiet, relentless. Galaxies that should drift apart instead lean towards something unseen. They do not rush. They do not spin out of control. They simply slide, as if toward a destination outside of space itself. It humbles the mind to think of it. Our universe, vast and expanding, still responds to something else. Something older, larger, or simply hidden. We measure, but we do not grasp. We name it dark flow, but that name explains nothing. It only marks our limit. This is not a mystery of ancient maps or lost civilizations. This is a mystery of now, a current of motion flowing through the very fabric of space, reminding us that even as we chart the stars, we are still drifting in darkness. In observatories, scientists watch the skies, measuring tiny shifts in red and blue light. The galaxies tilt, lean, slide on. They don't explain. They don't reveal, but they move. Perhaps one day the veil will lift. Perhaps one day light from that hidden place will reach us, and we'll understand what lies beyond the edge. But for now, the galaxies move in silence, and we follow them with questions, not answers. Dark flow is not a storm. It is a whisper. It does not shatter our understanding. It simply moves just beyond it, pulling gently at the threads of our knowledge, inviting us to wonder what lies behind the curtain of the known. In the northern reaches of Mexico, where the desert stretches wide beneath a burning sun, there's a place where sound itself seems to pause. No signs mark its borders, and no fence warns visitors away. But those who pass through it speak of strange sensations, of radios falling silent, compasses spinning without direction, and even time seeming to lose its rhythm. It is called the Zone of Silence. Located in the map of my desert, this quiet stretch of land offers no immediate signs of mystery. Sand, rock, sparse vegetation. A silence that at first feels like any other remote wilderness. But then something shifts. Electronics stop working. GPS signals vanish. Aircraft flying overhead report disruptions. Walkie-talkies fizzle into static. Even birds seem to avoid the skies above. It is as if something unseen presses gently against a world in this place, a soft interference that erases the normal rules. The zone first drew serious attention in the 1970s, when a U.S. missile veered off course during a test and crashed into this very desert. The malfunction was unexpected and unexplained. When investigators arrived, they too experienced equipment failure. Locals told them of long-standing oddities, strange lights in the sky, animals behaving differently, even mutations in desert flora. And always the silence, a silence deeper than mere absence of noise. Magnetic anomalies have been proposed. Perhaps the Earth's crust is different here, dense with iron or radioactive minerals. Others suggest the region's latitude plays a role, aligned in an invisible line with the Bermuda Triangle and the Egyptian pyramids. But none of these fully explain the breadth of effects. Why do digital clocks fall out of sync? Why does speech feel distant, even when spoken aloud? Some say the zone is a natural amplifier of energy or a vacuum for it. Others believe it is a place where dimensions overlap, a soft boundary between realities, a place where signals, thoughts, and even time bleed through from somewhere else. Most scientists remain cautious, attributing the phenomenon to interference, coincidence, or exaggerated folklore. But even so, the reports continue. Travelers describe moments of confusion, as if they walked further than they should in less time than they remember. A sense of being watched, not by eyes, but by presence itself. Objects vanish and reappear. People find themselves disoriented, unsure how long they've been walking. The air is dry, still and thick with something unnamed. The desert, always a landscape of mystery, seems to fold on itself here. No winds carry sound. No shade offers rest. Even the sun feels somehow quieter, its heat more pressing. It is not a place of fear, but of uncertainty. And in that uncertainty, wonder grows. Scientists have come with instruments, probes, and plans. They leave with data, but no solid answers. The silence remains. Not absolute, not empty, but charged, as if the zone itself is listening rather than speaking, waiting rather than revealing. In the evenings, when the desert cools and stars bloom overhead, the silence deepens. Not even insects stir, only the slow crunch of footsteps on salt and stone, and the strange feeling that the earth here holds something it is not yet ready to share. Perhaps the zone of silence is not broken. Perhaps it is working exactly as it was meant to. A space apart, a pause between signals. a breath held by the planet itself. Not all places are made for explanation. Some are made for stillness, for mystery, for the sound beneath all sound, the silence that hums softly in the bones. In the quiet rooms of a museum in Baghdad, there rest a few small clay jars, unassuming at first glance. Their surfaces are worn, their shape simple. Yet inside these vessels lie fragments of copper cylinders and iron rods, held in place by bitumen stoppers. To most, they might look like containers for oils or scrolls, forgotten pieces of daily life from 2,000 years ago. But to some, they may be something far more extraordinary, ancient batteries, discovered near the ruins of Kajut Rabu, not far from Baghdad. These artifacts date back to the Parthian or early Sassanid period. When first examined in the 1930s, their components puzzled researchers. The combination of copper and iron, separated by clay and sealed with asphalt, mirrors the structure of a simple galvanic cell, a primitive form of battery. And with the addition of an acidic liquid like vinegar or lemon juice, the jars could produce a small electrical current. This idea stunned many. Electricity, as understood today, wasn't formally discovered until the 18th century. The first modern battery, Volta's pile, came in 1800. If these jars truly function as batteries, then someone in ancient Mesopotamia had stumbled upon electrical principles over 1,000 years earlier. But if they were batteries, the question remains, what were they for? No wires, no lights, no written records accompany the jars. There are no mentions in surviving texts of electric tools, devices, or needs. Theories have emerged. Perhaps they were used to electroplate metals, coating one metal with another using electrical current. Perhaps they had religious or ritual purposes, sparking sensations or reactions in ceremonies. Or perhaps their function has been misunderstood entirely, and they were never meant to produce electricity at all. Replicas of the Baghdad batteries have been built, tested, and proven to generate low voltages. Enough to feel, enough to surprise, but not enough to power machinery. Some experiments have shown they could deposit thin films of metal on other surfaces, suggesting a possible use in decoration or craft. Yet, without context, all interpretations remain speculative. Skeptics argue the shape of the jars and their materials could simply be coincidence, that the copper and iron served some forgotten non-electrical purpose, that the acidic residue found inside was from food or ink. But the design is curious, intentional in its separation of materials, precise in its containment. It invites more than dismissal. And so the mystery endures. If the Baghdad batteries were electrical devices, they challenge our timeline of innovation. They suggest a pocket of knowledge lost to time, a spark of understanding that flickered briefly and then faded. If they were not batteries, then they remain strange nonetheless, their purpose veiled by centuries of silence. There is something poetic about the idea of electricity humming in the hands of ancient artisans, not as a power source, but as a discovery, an accident, perhaps, a curiosity felt and remembered, a tool that came too soon for the world to hold on to. The jars now sit quietly, behind glass, their contents long inert. No current flows, no wires extend, but the questions they carry still flicker. What else was known once, then forgotten? What knowledge rises and falls, not in straight lines, but in waves? The Baghdad batteries may never light a lamp, but they light the imagination. They whisper a possibility, of forgotten hands holding secrets that science is only just remembering. Not all history is written in books. Some of it is hidden in clay, sealed with bitumen, and left for us to wonder. In the vast frozen wilderness of northern Canada, where snow stretches farther than the eye can see and silence presses in like a second skin, there's a lake called Anjikuni. It lies still for most of the year, icebound and overlooked. But in the winter of 1930, this quiet lake became the center of a mystery that has never been fully explained. A village disappeared, not over time, not through migration, but suddenly completely, as if lifted from the land itself. The story begins with a fur trapper named Joe LaBelle, a seasoned traveler of the northern wilds. He knew the rhythms of remote life, the distant smoke of fires, the chatter of sled dogs, the welcoming calls of those who lived far from roads and towns. But when he arrived at the Inuit village near Anjikuni Lake, Something was wrong. There was no movement, no laughter, no voices carried across the snow. He found the huts intact, doors open, belongings left in place. Meals had been half-cooked, some still sitting in pots. Clothes hung where they always had. Tools rested where hands had last placed them. Fires had burned low, but not out. The dogs, loyal, strong, accustomed to cold, were found frozen in the snow, tethered and starred, as if waiting for masters who never returned. There were no footprints leading away, no blood, no signs of violence, no struggle, just emptiness. A place that should have been alive was now silent. The people, men, women, children, were simply gone. Joe LaBelle reported the discovery. Mounties arrived, investigated, and recorded what they saw. Accounts vary in detail, as retellings over the years blur the edges. Some claim a grave had been opened and its contents removed. Others mention strange lights in the sky days before the disappearance. But what remains consistent is the suddenness, the completeness, the stillness that followed. No bodies were ever found. No remains, no camps, no evidence of travel. The lake was searched, the forest scouted, but it was as if the villagers had vanished into the air, leaving behind only the memory of themselves. A village full of life, gone without a trace. Skeptics suggest the tale grew over time, that elements were added in retelling. Some question whether the village ever existed as described. Others believe disease or migration could explain it. But none of these theories answer all the details. The frozen dogs, the meals left uneaten, the lack of tracks in freshly fallen snow. And then there are those who believe something stranger occurred, that this corner of the world, quiet and removed, may touch something else, something not fully understood, a fold in space, a moment in time that slipped, a breach between what is seen and what is not. The land around Anjikuni is vast and ancient. The stars above it burn cold and clear. In such places, the normal rules seem looser. Echoes carry farther. Shadows move longer. Stories grow deeper. Perhaps the villagers walked into the forest and kept walking. Perhaps they saw something in the sky and followed. Or perhaps they were taken, not in fear, but in silence. Today, the area is quiet again. Snow covers the traces. The village is gone. But the story remains, drifting like wind across the lake's frozen surface. A reminder that not all disappearances are loud. Some happen quietly, like breath leaving the body. A place that was full becomes empty, and no one can say why. Anjikuni Lake still freezes each winter. The stars still hang above it. And somewhere beneath the snow, a mystery sleeps, untouched, unsolved, and still listening. In the early morning of June 30th, 1908, deep in the forests of Siberia, the sky lit up with a brightness that rivaled the sun. For miles around, people paused in confusion, shielding their eyes from a strange light that seemed to pulse from nowhere. Then came the sound, a deep, rolling blast that shattered windows, knocked people to the ground, and sent shockwaves racing through the air. The Tunguska event had begun. At the heart of the explosion, near the Podkamenia-Tunguska River, trees fell in a radial pattern, scorched and flattened outward from a single invisible point. The blast destroyed over 2,000 square kilometers of forest, toppling 80 million trees like matchsticks. Animals vanished. Birds went silent. In nearby towns, the sky glowed for days, casting eerie shades of orange and white long into the night, as if the sun refused to leave. Yet when scientists finally reached the area, nearly 2 decades later, they found no crater, no remnants of a meteorite, no impact site, just a vast circle of charred earth, silent and empty, with trees still pointing away from the center as if bowing to something unseen. The theories came quickly. Some believed a meteor or comet had exploded in the atmosphere, a so-called airburst, releasing the energy of a large atomic bomb without ever striking the ground. Others wondered if the object had been made of ice, vaporizing completely before impact. But even these explanations left questions behind. Why no fragments? Why no consistent chemical residue? And why did the shock waves travel so far? Later, more exotic theories surfaced. A small black hole passing through Earth, a clump of antimatter reacting with our atmosphere, even an alien spacecraft crashing far from home. Each suggestion reflected a growing awareness that the event didn't quite fit the usual models. It was powerful but oddly clean, devastating, but strangely absent of the clues large impacts usually leave behind. And then there is the strange behavior of the sky. For weeks after the explosion, people in Europe and Asia reported glowing night skies, so bright that newspapers could be read at midnight. Dust high in the atmosphere was suspected, but again, the composition and extent remained unexplained. Over a century later, the sight still draws scientists, curious travelers, and quiet wanderers. Trees have returned, but their growth still shows signs of trauma. The soil carries echoes of heat and pressure. And though computer models have given partial explanations, no one has fully captured the strangeness of what happened. It is rare for such a massive event to leave so few answers. The Tunguska event is not just a mystery of space or geology. It is a reminder how vast and unpredictable our world still is, of how the sky can hold surprises not just in ancient stories, but in modern memory. There are no signs, no monuments, just forest, quiet, wide, and waiting, the kind of place where the earth remembers even when we forget, where a single morning more than a century ago still echoes, not in sound, but in questions. Perhaps it was a comet. Perhaps it was something stranger. But whatever it was, it came silently through the sky, burned bright, and left only scorched trees to tell its story. In the summer of 1977, a radio telescope nestled in the fields of Ohio turned its ear toward the cosmos, listening patiently to the static of space. It was called the Big Ear, a quiet giant scanning the sky for whispers too faint for human senses. On the night of August 15th, it caught something. Not a crackle, not a hiss, but a clean, powerful signal. 72 seconds of sound from the void. It came, it spoke, and then it was gone. The printout showed a string of numbers and letters. 6EQJ5. A code, not in words, but in intensity. The signal had spiked in a way no background noise ever had. Jerry Emmon, the astronomer reviewing the data, circled it in red ink and wrote a single word in margin. Wow. That simple expression will become the name of the signal. The wow signal. A moment in time when the sky seemed to speak, just once, with a clarity no one expected. It came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, near the 3 stars that formed the base of the teapot shape. But there was no known star or planet in that precise line of sight. No comet had been observed. No satellite crossed its path. Efforts to repeat the detection began almost immediately. The Big Ear listened again. Other telescopes joined in, but the sky remained silent. No second signal. No echo. The transmission had come only once, from a source no one could trace, in a pattern too perfect to dismiss. Natural phenomena were considered. Could it have been a reflection? A satellite ping? Radio interference? But the signal didn't behave like any of those. It was narrowband, focused on a single frequency near 1420 megahertz, which correspond to the emission of hydrogen, the most common element in the universe. It's also a frequency protected for astronomical research, where no Earth-based transmissions are allowed. That detail intrigued many. If one were trying to communicate across the stars, hydrogen would be the logical place to start, a kind of universal constant. And if a civilization out there wanted to be found, this is exactly the kind of signal it might send. Not loud, not long, but unmistakable to anyone listening with the right tools. Still, science does not leap to conclusions. The wow signal remains categorized as unexplained, not extraterrestrial. Its singular nature means there's nothing to compare it to. No pattern, no certainty. Just a single, clear voice in the dark, and then nothing more. Over the decades, interest has risen and faded like a distant star. Some new studies propose passing comets as possible sources, but the timing doesn't align perfectly. Others suggest it was a glitch, though no similar glitches have occurred in the decades since. The equipment worked perfectly before and after. The sky has never spoken in the same way again. What remains is not data, but atmosphere, a feeling that for 72 seconds we might have heard something not made on Earth, a greeting or a question, or simply the echo of something ancient passing through space. We don't know who or what it was, or if it was anyone at all. Maybe it was a natural event, so rare it's only happened once in recorded history. Maybe it was a chance signal from a civilization light years away, flickering into our range just long enough to be heard. Or maybe it was a cosmic accident, a sound with no source, no meaning, just a ripple in the universe like a leaf falling in a vast, empty forest. But it was there. That much we know. For 72 seconds, something out there touched the edge of human awareness. Not with words, but with presence. And then it vanished. The big ear is gone now, dismantled and overgrown. But the wow signal still lives in printouts and quiet corners of memory. A signal that never repeated. A voice that never identified itself. The loneliest signal. Still waiting, still wondering, still unanswered. In the dim corridors of ancient temples, where incense once curled through the air and chants echoed off stone, there are places where silence breaks not with words, but with music. A gentle tap, a hand lightly brushing a column, and the stone sings. Not loud, not chaotic, but pure resonant tones, rising from unmoving pillars and floors. These are the singing stones, scattered across temples in India and Southeast Asia, humming with a mystery as elegant as it is forgotten. At first glance, they appear unremarkable, slender columns carved from granite, or long slabs laid into temple floors. But when struck, they produce sound. Not dull thuds, not hollow knocks, but musical notes. High and low, crisp and clear, as if the stone remembers a language older than speech. In temples like Hampi's Vitala Temple in India and Prambanan in Indonesia, these musical marvels are hidden in plain sight, part of the structure, yet apart from explanation. Their tones are not random. The columns are tuned, separated by specific intervals, producing scales and rhythms when played. Some stones sing like bells, others like strings. There are even columns that seem to carry vibrations through the entire hall, as if the temple itself were a single instrument waiting for fingers to press its chords. The materials used are well known. Granite, quartz-rich stone, dense and durable. The artisans had access to these rocks and tools of shaping. But what is not known, not truly understood, is how they tuned them. No blueprints survive. No manuals etched into walls. Only the stones remain, still singing after centuries of stillness. Modern scientists have studied the resonant frequencies. Some believe the sound is a result of internal grain structure, precisely carved proportions, and the placement of support points. Others argue that the ancient builders may have had knowledge of acoustics far more advanced than we assume. Not accidental harmony, but intentional design, crafted to create sound not just for the ears, but for the soul. And then there's the question of purpose. Why make stones sing? Some believe it was spiritual, that sound was used to enhance rituals, to harmonize the energy of the space, to awaken the senses during meditation. Others suggest more practical uses, a way to communicate across vast halls without shouting, or to test the quality of stone during construction. A few even propose healing through vibration, long before modern ideas of sound therapy emerged. But in truth, the purpose may be less important than the experience. These temples were not just places of worship. They were worlds of sensation. Light filtered through stone lattices. Fragrances danced on warm air. And in certain corners, sound emerged from solid ground, as if the earth itself hummed along with prayer. Time has softened some of these tones. Wear and weather have dulled a few notes. But many still respond to a knuckle, a fingertip, a simple brush of skin. The sound, once struck, lingers briefly in the air, clear and haunting. A reminder that knowledge once lived in rhythm and resonance, not just in words. There's a quiet reverence in these stones. They do not shout their secrets. They wait, still anchored in temples that have outlived kingdoms. They hold a piece of forgotten science, one shaped by touch, tone, and time. Perhaps the builders did not think of it as technology. Perhaps it was simply part of beauty, or devotion, or joy. But whatever their intent, they left behind music carved into the world itself. Notes not written, but built, and so the stones still sing. In dark corners of crumbling sanctuaries, in halls where footsteps echo softly, They wait for someone to listen, not with the mind, with the skin, with the breath, with the stillness that comes just before a sound begins. In a time where mystery often hides behind stars and machines, these stones remain ancient instruments of wonder, perfectly quiet until the moment they are touched. And then, like memory, they sing. When the Apollo missions reached the moon, they brought more than flags and footsteps. They brought instruments, experiments, and a curiosity as vast as the space they crossed. Among the many tests conducted was one that would leave scientists puzzled for decades. In 1969, the Apollo 12 astronauts intentionally crashed part of their lunar module onto the surface. Seismometers they had left behind recorded the results. What they heard was unexpected. The moon rang, not like a rock, not like a thud, but like a bell. For nearly an hour, vibrations echoed to the lunar surface, a slow, fading hum that defied the behavior of earthly impacts. There was no soft crumble, no muffled crack, just a clear, sustained resonance. It was as though the moon wasn't solid, but hollow. Later missions repeated the experiment. Each time, the moon responded with long, ringing reverberations. The waves traveled far and lingered. Scientists watched the data in disbelief. On Earth, seismic waves dissipate quickly, absorbed by moisture layers and molten centers. But the moon acted differently, dry, rigid, and resonant. Was it hollow? Probably not in the literal sense. Most agree the moon is not a giant shell, but its internal structure appears strange, unusual. It lacks the molten core that Earth has. Instead, it seems made of tightly packed rock, fractured by billions of years of impacts and cooled into a dense, echoing body. Some call it seismically dead. Others describe it as a massive, natural tuning fork. Still, the mystery deepens. The moon's density is lower than expected. Its crust is strangely uniform, and the way it responds to force, as if the whole structure is designed to carry sound, is unlike any other celestial body studied. These facts have fueled theories, some more speculative than others, that the moon is artificial, that it was placed in orbit rather than formed naturally, that it is a construct, a vessel, a remnant of something long forgotten. Mainstream science rejects these ideas, pointing instead to complex geological processes and the uniqueness of lunar formation. But even within conservative models, the moon does not behave as simply as we once thought. The echo is real. The recordings are real. The resonance, undeniable. What's less certain is what it means. Sound on the moon is different from sound on Earth. With no atmosphere, there is no medium for air-based vibration. But inside the rock, seismic waves move clearly, purely, without interference. The moon rings not into space, but into itself, like a quiet song turned inward. It's a strange image. Our closest celestial neighbor, long thought silent and still, responded with music when struck. Not by design, perhaps, but by nature. Yet nature rarely makes such sounds by accident. Some believe the ringing is a key to understanding the moon's past, how it formed, what lies beneath its dusty surface, and why it remains so different from the Earth it circles. Others feel the echo is a symbol, a reminder that even the most familiar places can surprise us. To those who walked its surface, the moon felt quiet, still, its gray, dust-swallowed footsteps. Its horizons curve in silence. But below that silence, a memory waits, a sound that only comes when disturbed, a voice not heard, but felt through instruments left behind in the soil. And so the moon waits, quiet again, circling above, reflecting our light, hiding its echo until the next impact comes. When it does, it may sing once more not for us, but simply because it can. In a universe filled with noise, the moon's hollow echo is one of the softest mysteries, a tone suspended in the dark, reminding us that even silence can have depth. Even stone can remember sound. In the waters off the Yucatan Peninsula, where the Gulf of Mexico stretches calm and wide, there was once an island. It appeared on maps dating back to the 16th century, a small, reddish patch of land known as Bermeja. Sailors charted it. Explorers noted it. Cartographers marked its position again and again. For centuries, Bermeja was part of the known world. And then, without warning or fanfare, it vanished. Modern satellites show only open sea where the island should be. Surveys find no trace, no shallow reef, no submerged landmass, no underwater rise. It is as if Bermeja never existed. And yet, the records remain. Not one, not two, but dozens of maps across hundreds of years bear its name and coordinates. A place once fixed, now missing. The mystery deepens with time. The island's disappearance isn't just a cartographic curiosity. It has geopolitical weight. In recent decades, Bermeja's location became relevant in debates over oil-rich waters. If the island had remained, it could have shifted maritime boundaries, giving one country greater claim to the sea's resources. Its absence, then, is not only strange, it's significant. Could an island truly vanish? Natural explanations were offered. Perhaps it was a sandbar, gradually eroded by storms, or a volcanic formation, collapsed into the sea. Some suggested Bermeja was a mirage, a misidentified mass of drifting sargassum or floating debris. But such things do not endure across centuries of maps. They do not gain latitude and longitude. They do not earn names. Theories began to shift. Some whisper that Bermeja had been deliberately removed, not just from maps, but from the sea itself, a target of sabotage, sunken to alter borders, a casualty of politics, erased from sight. But no wreckage has ever been found. No crater, no scar beneath the waves. Just deep, dark water. And so the island's absence lingers like a ghost. A name that once had weight, now empty. A place that once was, now nowhere. The ocean holds many secrets. But Bermeja's is particularly haunting. Not because of what we know, but because of what we thought we knew. It challenges trust in the maps that guide us, in the records that shape our sense of place. How many other islands have vanished? How many still wait unseen? Bermeja may have been small, a speck in the Gulf, but its story ripples outward. In quiet offices, scientists review old charts and new data, searching for hints. In libraries, historians trace mentions in logs and journals. And in the water itself, nothing speaks. No current whispers its path. No depth betrays its edge. Perhaps Bermeja was never truly an island. Perhaps it was a symbol of how the world shifts beneath our feet, of how certainty can dissolve into mystery. Or perhaps it remains hidden by cloud or shadow, still rising from the sea when no one is watching. We may never find it again. But Bermeja reminds us that even in an age of satellites and certainty, the map is never complete. There are still blank spaces, still names without places, still places that, once touched by human thought, refuse to disappear completely, even when the earth says they are gone. In the stillness of central Norway, nestled between low hills and winding rivers, there is a valley where the night sometimes comes alive. Hessdalen, quiet and remote, is known not for noise or movement, but for lights. Not headlights, not lanterns. Floating lights, red, white, yellow, drifting through the sky in silence, sometimes flickering, sometimes glowing steady, often lasting minutes or even hours. They appear without warning, and no one knows why. The valley is small, a few villages scattered along its base. Forests press close, and snow lingers for much of the year. It is not a place of cities or industry, yet since at least the 1930s, and more frequently since the early 1980s, people here have looked up and seen things that leave them breathless. Lights that hover just above the ground, spheres that glide over hills, flashes that appear in open sky, then vanish as if swallowed. They are not meteors. Meteors fall fast. These lights move slowly, deliberately. Sometimes they follow paths across the valley. Sometimes they remain fixed, like sentinels. They don't make sound. They don't respond to wind. And they don't match the movement of any known aircraft or drone. Scientists have come. Cameras have been mounted. Instruments installed. In the 1980s, a dedicated project was launched to study the Hessdalen lights. What they found confirmed the mystery. The lights are real. They can be photographed, recorded, measured. Spectral analysis shows unusual energy patterns. Electromagnetic disturbances accompany some sightings. But no consistent explanation has emerged. The lights appear in different colors. Red and yellow are most common, but white and blue have also been seen. Some seem solid with sharp outlines. Others are more like plasma, glowing clouds of something undefined. They can appear high above a valley or near the treetops. Some have even been seen hovering over roads or reflecting in the windows of houses. Theories stretch wide. Some suggest piezoelectric effects, that stress on quartz-rich rocks beneath the valley could produce electrical discharges. Others propose plasma created by specific atmospheric conditions. More speculative ideas speak of natural energy vortexes, earthlights, or unknown forms of ball lightning. But none fully account for the behavior, the frequency, or the intelligence the lights sometimes seem to display. There are stories of the lights reacting to movement, following cars, approaching people, changing direction, always silent, always just far enough away to remain untouchable, and always leaving behind the same sense of awe, of confusion, of standing in the presence of something real but unreachable. Hessdalen's mystery is different from other sightings around the world. It's not just a single incident or an isolated report. It's a pattern, ongoing for decades. Lights that return again and again without warning or explanation, a phenomenon that refuses to fade, even as technology advances. The valley has grown quieter over time. Fewer researchers remain. The lights still come, but less frequently now. Some say it's seasonal. Others believe it's cyclical, tied to magnetic shifts or solar activity. But the truth remains elusive. To the people who live there, the lights are simply part of the landscape, a strange, glowing element of the place they call home. They don't claim to understand. They don't try to explain. They watch. They wait. And when the sky glows, they pause, not with fear, but with the quiet respect that mystery deserves. In the dark hours of night, when the wind moves through the trees and the snow glows faintly under the moon, a light may rise from the valley floor, hover for a moment, then drift into the sky. It will make no sound. It will leave no mark, but will remind whoever sees it that the world still holds places where wonder lives, floating, glowing, silent, and unexplained. Beneath the turquoise waters near the Greek island of Antikythera, a ship once sank into the sea. Its cargo was ancient: statues, pottery, coins, fragments of a world long past. For decades, divers retrieved treasures from the wreck, each piece adding to the picture of a trading vessel lost to time. But in 1901, something stranger emerged from the depths. A corroded lump of bronze, split and worn, its purpose unclear. At first, it looked like debris. It would take years to realize it was something else entirely: the Antikythera mechanism. The device, dating back more than 2,000 years, was unlike anything else ever found from the ancient world. Inside the corroded fragments were gears, not simple ones, but intricate, overlapping, precisely cut wheels, with teeth so fine they resembled those of modern clocks. As researchers examined the pieces more closely, a startling idea took shape. This was not a tool or decoration. It was a machine, a mechanical device designed with purpose, complexity, and a deep understanding of both mathematics and the cosmos. X-ray imaging revealed a stunning structure. More than 30 bronze gears interlocked within a small casing, no bigger than a shoebox. They were arranged to track the movements of celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, the known planets. Dials and pointers once moved across its surface, displaying the positions of stars and the dates of eclipses. One gear even accounted for the uneven speed of the moon's orbit, a detail so subtle it wouldn't be fully understood for centuries. Scholars now believe the Antikythera mechanism functioned as an ancient astronomical computer. It could predict solar and lunar eclipses. It displayed the cycles of the Olympiad, the schedule of the ancient Olympic Games. It tracked the phases of the moon and possibly even modeled the motions of Mercury and Venus. All this in a device made more than 1,000 years before the first mechanical clocks in Europe. Its existence rewrote assumptions about ancient technology. The craftsmanship required to build such a mechanism was thought to be centuries beyond the capabilities of Greek engineers. And yet, here it was, not a drawing or a theory, but a real physical object, a machine that worked, that ticked, that carried the sky in its gears. How was it made? Who designed it? Some attribute it to the school of Archimedes, or to a workshop influenced by the mathematicians of Alexandria. But no other examples have been found. No instructions. No records. It is as if a spark of genius flared and then disappeared, leaving only one surviving trace beneath the sea. The mechanism's fragments are fragile, kept safe behind glass in a museum in Athens. Replicas have been built, bringing its wheels back to motion. But even now, researchers uncover new layers, new inscriptions, new secrets encoded in the metal. There are letters etched along the sides, clues to its use and meaning, slowly deciphered over years of study. Each line adds to the story, not just of what it did, but of how much was once known and how much has been lost. The Antikythera mechanism is not a myth. It is not legend. It is real, and that may be its greatest mystery, that something so advanced, so precisely constructed, was built in an age we thought too primitive to hold such knowledge, and that after creation, the skill to build such things vanished, not for decades, but for centuries. Some call it a relic of a forgotten science. Others believe it represents the peak of a knowledge system that collapsed, its tools scattered by time. Whatever its origin, the mechanism stands as a quiet contradiction, a reminder that history does not always move forward. Sometimes it circles, like gears within a box, turning again and again toward forgotten skies. It remains one of the most mysterious artifacts ever found, not because it is unknown, but because it was known too early. A machine that whispered to the stars before the world was ready to listen. And even now, its wheels turn in imagination, precise, patient, and far ahead of their time. In the quiet countryside of 12th century Suffolk, in a village called Woolpit, harvest time had come. Fields were golden and full, and the people would go about their simple lives when something strange stirred at the edge of their world. Near a set of deep pits once dug to trap wolves, two children emerged, a boy and a girl. Their clothes unfamiliar, their skin an unnatural shade of green. They were found by farmers, frightened and confused, speaking a language no one understood. Their clothes were made of unfamiliar fabric. Their eyes darted at every sound. But most unsettling of all was the color of their skin, a green tinge, like the leaves of spring or the moss on river stones. Not ill-looking, just different, as if they had come from someplace not quite of this earth. The villagers took them in, fed them, tried to comfort them. At first, the children refused all food, turning away from bread and meat. Only raw beans seemed to satisfy them. Slowly, over days, they began to adapt, eating more, learning English, and becoming more like the children around them. But the boy, the younger of the two, grew weak. He faded with the season and died before his story could be fully told. The girl survived. Her green color faded. Her language shifted. And eventually, she spoke, not fluently, not with certainty, but with enough to tell a strange tale. She said they came from a land called St. Martin's Land, a place of perpetual twilight. There was no sun, only dim light. Everyone there was green like them. They had been tending their family's animals, she said, when they heard a sound, a bell, and followed it through a tunnel or a cave. When they emerged, they were in Woolpit. She could not say how they arrived. She could not say where their home was, or how to return. The villagers listened, puzzled. The story held no logic, no map, but it had the ring of something genuine, something dreamlike, perhaps, but not imagined. She lived the rest of her life in England. She was baptized, grew up, worked, married, but she never forgot the Twilight world. And no one ever explained where it was, or what truly happened that day by the wolf pits. Historians have searched for clues. Some suggest the children were refugees from a nearby village, orphaned and lost, suffering from chlorosis, a condition that can cause greenish skin. Others say they may have been Flemish immigrants, their language unfamiliar, their origin misunderstood by villagers. But the details resist easy explanation. Why the green skin? Why the refusal to eat normal food? Why the story of the Twilight Land? And how did they arrive, not walking through fields, but emerging suddenly near a pit, as if they stepped from one world to another? The story has endured not because it is provable, but because it lingers. It exists in that soft space between folklore and history, recorded by chroniclers with no reason to invent. It asks more than it answers, and in that way, it stays alive, Perhaps the children did come from another place, not far, but hidden, a world beneath the hills, or behind the trees, a forgotten space of shadow and green. Or perhaps their story is a reflection of something deeper, the way we respond to the strange, the foreign, the otherworldly. Woolpit is quiet now. The fields grow as they always have. The pits are gone or covered by time. But the story remains, carrying the name of the village in the memory of that one strange day. The girl never saw her brother again. She never returned to St. Martin's Land. But for a brief moment, the boundary between here and somewhere else flickered. 2 children walked through it. One stayed. The other was lost. And the mystery, like their green skin, has never entirely faded. Along quiet stretches of road in distant corners of the world, strange things happen. A car in neutral begins to roll uphill. Water poured onto pavement appears to defy gravity. Flowing not down but up, people stand puzzled, eyes fixed on the impossible slope. These are magnetic hills, gravity hills, mystery spots, places where the rules of nature seem to hesitate, if only for a moment. They exist in many places. In Ladakh, India, a road where vehicles climb a slope with engines off. In Moncton, Canada, where bicycles coast upward. In Pennsylvania, in California, in Scotland, in South Korea. Each place a little different, yet bound by the same quiet defiance of physical law. Tourists stop. Locals shrug. Scientists measure. But the experience remains the same. Something feels off. At first, the sensation is subtle. A feeling that the ground isn't quite right, that the horizon leans the wrong way. Then the demonstration. A bottle placed on the ground begins to roll, slowly, steadily, not in the direction your body insists it should. The slope looks uphill. Your eyes confirm it. And yet, the motion tells another story. Explanations do exist. Most magnetic hills are now labeled as optical illusions. The layout of the land, the curve of the road, the angle of trees and background slopes combine to trick the eye. What appears uphill is, in fact, a slight downward grade, masked by the surroundings. Without a level or careful measurement, perception falters. Our senses, so often trusted, mislead us. But not all sights surrender so easily. In some locations, compasses behave erratically. In others, even when measured, the incline appears genuine. Magnetic fields are stronger. Strange metallic deposits lie beneath the earth. Some places exhibit higher radioactivity. A few defy full explanation. Even in the places where illusion is confirmed, the sensation lingers. There is something unsettling about being fooled by the land itself. The mind expects gravity to be certain, silent, invisible, but unwavering. When gravity wavers, even as illusion, it shakes something deeper than understanding. In many cultures, magnetic hills are wrapped in myth, spirits pulling carts uphill, sacred places where gods reverse nature, cursed lands where energy flows backward. For centuries, long before science arrived with its levels and instruments, people stood on these spots and whispered of power. The ground felt different. The air moved oddly. Time, they said, slowed or sped up without reason. Perhaps there is something comforting in believing these places are special, thresholds between realities, places where the earth breathes a little differently. Or perhaps they are simply reminders that the world still knows how to surprise us, how to play with what we think we know. Tourists come now, phones in hand, filming water rolling uphill, capturing cars coasting toward the sky. They laugh. They marvel. They share. The roads become destinations. Markers are placed. Signs warn of what to expect. But the moment still catches people off guard, that strange second when what you see and what you feel drift apart. Even the verified illusions hold their own kind of magic. For a few steps, for a short stretch of road, the ordinary bends. Physics, though unbroken, feels flexible. And in that space, mystery breathes. Magnetic hills ask us not to abandon reason, but to pause. To see how easily the mind can be led by context, by shadow, by subtle shifts in shape and line. They are nature's quiet joke, a gentle trick played not in malice, but in wonder. And in those rare cases where the mystery remains, where measurement and explanation fall short, the hills stand as quiet question marks in the landscape, not shouting, not demanding belief, just gently tugging at the edges of certainty. Perhaps gravity never faltered. Perhaps the world never bent. But in the places where it feels like it does, something deeper stirs. The sense that the earth still holds secrets just beneath the surface, and that once in a while, we're lucky enough to stand exactly where one of them rises up to meet us. In the silent vaults of rare book collections, among the aging pages of known history, there is one manuscript that stands apart, bound in faded leather, filled with looping script and delicate illustrations. It feels at first like the work of a forgotten scholar, but the more one looks, the stranger becomes. The Voynich manuscript, named after the bookseller who brought it to light in 1912, is unlike anything else in the world. A book without origin, without translation, without known purpose. A message suspended in time, written in a language no one can read. Its pages are filled with strange, otherworldly drawings. Plants that resemble no species known to botany. Stars and zodiac signs arranged in unfamiliar ways. Pools of water, where nude women bathe and interact in mysterious patterns. Surrounded by looping tubes and elaborate plumbing-like structures, margins full of faded numbering systems. Every section seems to obey a kind of order, a system, but one that cannot be matched to any living tradition. The text itself flows in elegant, consistent handwriting, line after line of looping, cursive script, clearly deliberate, clearly structured, but the symbols form no known language. Not Latin, not Greek, not Hebrew, Arabic, or any other medieval alphabet. Cryptographers have studied it for over a century, including experts from military intelligence and digital codebreakers. All have failed. The words repeat patterns, suggesting grammar, vocabulary, even syntax, but they yield no meaning. Some believe it a cipher, a hidden code written to obscure knowledge from prying eyes. Others suggest it's a constructed language, invented whole from the mind of its author. A few have argued it's a hoax, an elaborate joke from the Middle Ages, designed to puzzle and impress. But if it is a hoax, it is one of remarkable discipline. The writing remains consistent throughout more than 200 pages. The style, the flow, the linguistic patterns, all show the signs of a real language, even if no one can understand it. Carbon dating places of vellum, the calfskin pages, to the early 15th century, around the year 1404 to 1438. But who created it and why remains a mystery. Some theories point to alchemists, mystics, or members of secret societies. Others link it to forgotten traditions of medieval herbalism or astronomy. The manuscript passed to the hands of emperors and scholars, quietly moving across Europe, always preserved, never understood. Its illustrations deepen the puzzle. The plants have roots, stems, and leaves, but no known taxonomy. The astrological diagrams reference months and symbols, but the cycles do not match standard calendars. The female figures move through pools and tubes, gesturing as if following rituals no one can decipher. The entire book seems filled with meaning, as if designed to teach or record, but never reveals its subject. Modern technology has been turned toward the pages. Spectral imaging, AI pattern recognition, frequency analysis. Still, the script remains mute. No breakthrough has unlocked it. And yet, the manuscript speaks in its own way. Its very existence says something about the human drive to communicate, to encode, to preserve knowledge even when the world may never understand it. To hold the Voynich manuscript is to feel the weight of something that wants to be read, something patient, something unfinished. It is not threatening, not dark, but it pulls at curiosity like a gentle thread. It asks questions, not just about what it says, but about who we are, how we understand meaning, how we lose it, and how we try to find again. There may come a day when the code is broken, when a single word cracks the pattern, and the pages begin to speak. But until then, the Voynich manuscript remains a quiet enigma, a book from nowhere, in a language made of silence, still waiting to be heard. Beneath the cold, dark waters of the Baltic Sea, something rests on the seafloor. It was discovered in 2011 by a team of Swedish treasure hunters scanning for shipwrecks. What appeared on their sonar screen was not a ship, nor a sunken cargo container. It was a formation, massive, circular, and deeply strange. Roughly 200 feet wide, with sharp edges, right angles, and what looked like stair-like features and symmetrical lines. They named it the Baltic Sea anomaly. Sonar images show a shape unlike any known natural formation in the region, a disk partially buried in the sediment, with a long drag mark stretching behind it, as if it skidded across the ocean floor before coming to a stop. Some compared it to the Millennium Falcon from science fiction. Others saw the ruin of an ancient fortress or the dome of a forgotten temple. It looked out of place. Too regular. Too deliberate. The ocean team attempted to dive down, but the waters were cold, visibility poor, and equipment unreliable. Electronic devices reportedly malfunctioned near the site. Compasses spun. Communication systems dropped. Cameras flickered out. The divers described the surface of the object as dark and smooth, like stone burned by heat. They found cracks and passage-like grooves, but nothing that revealed its purpose. Samples brought back for testing were inconclusive, sandstone, granite, and some elements that puzzled geologists. Skeptics suggest the anomaly is simply a glacial deposit, a boulder field carved and dropped by ice sheets during the last ice age. The Baltic Sea, they argue, holds many odd formations, but others point out that glaciers don't tend to create perfect circles or lines that appear engineered, and the object's size and isolation only deepen the mystery. Could it be a ruin, the remains of a civilization submerged by rising seas? If so, it would be far older than any confirmed human structure in the region. Some have speculated connections to Atlantis, to ancient stone circles, to lost pre-Ice Age knowledge. Others have suggested it's the wreckage of a spacecraft, a UFO that crashed long ago and now lies dormant beneath the waves, hidden in plain sight. But no evidence confirms these ideas. There is no writing, no symbols, no clear entry points or signs of habitation. Just shape, geometry, presence. It is a silence carved in stone, heavy and cold and still. The anomaly lies more than 250 feet below the surface. It is difficult to reach. Expeditions are expensive, complicated by the shifting currents and poor visibility of the Baltic waters. And so, much of what we know still comes from those first sonar scans, ghostly black and white outlines of something we can barely touch. Its isolation only adds to the atmosphere. There are no nearby structures, no geological formations that resemble it, just a single, circular presence resting on the seabed like a forgotten artifact or a sleeping sentinel. The deeper mystery is not just what the anomaly is, but why it remains unexplained. In an age of satellite imaging and deep-sea drones, how can something so large stay so uncertain? Is it because we've not looked closely enough? Or because what we find there doesn't fit our frameworks? Some believe the truth is mundane, a rock shaped by chance and perception. Others believe we are looking at something ancient, older than writing, older than cities, older than history itself. A relic not of human hands, but of something else, a marker, perhaps a machine, or simply a question too large to answer. The Baltic Sea anomaly remains there, undisturbed, below the waves, neither confirmed nor dismissed, real but silent, like a riddle the earth is not yet ready to solve. For now, it waits, still shaped like a disk, still carved by mystery, still resting in the deep, in the dry silence of Chile's Atacama Desert, one of the most barren places on Earth. A strange body was found. It was discovered in 2003, wrapped in cloth inside a leather pouch, hidden within an abandoned church in the remote town of La Noria. The skeleton was small, just 6 inches long, but it was not a fetus. Its bones were fully developed. Its skull was elongated and conical. It had only 10 ribs instead of 12, and the eye sockets were large and angular. It looked human, and it didn't. The find quickly gained attention. Nicknamed Atta, the tiny figure seemed impossible to place. It was not a doll or a carving. The bones were real. The joints, the teeth, the spinal curvature, all indicated a living being, not an object. But what kind of being could grow so small, so quickly, and with such an unusual skull? Initial speculation ran wild. Some saw an extraterrestrial, the first physical evidence of life beyond Earth. Others thought of a rare genetic disorder, a severely malformed child, or even a preserved mummy from an ancient and unknown culture. Ada's appearance left space for both science and speculation to take root. Researchers conducted tests, including X-rays and DNA analysis. They confirmed that the bones were not fabricated. They belonged to a biological entity. Analysis of the skeleton's growth plates suggested the individual had been between 6 and 8 years old at the time of death. Yet the size didn't match. How could a child that small, with such advanced bone structure, have existed? Later studies in 2018 used more advanced genetic sequencing. The conclusion was clear: Ada was human, a female of South American ancestry. Her DNA carried mutations linked to bone and muscle development. Rare, possibly unique combinations that had never been seen together before. These mutations could explain the abnormal growth, the hardened bones, the shape of the skull. In scientific terms, she was a person born with extreme genetic deformities. And yet, questions remain. Some scientists point out that the level of bone development still doesn't fully align with known pathologies. The growth patterns are strange, the rate of bone density unusual, and the shape of the cranium defies typical deformity classifications. Ada is not easily categorized, even with modern tools. Every answer leads to another question. For those drawn to the mysterious, Ada's image continues to spark imagination. The Atacama Desert, with its alien landscapes and ancient ruins, seems a fitting place for a discovery so out of place. The skeleton has become a symbol, not just a scientific curiosity, but of how thin the line can be between knowledge and wonder. The ethical debates also began. Who was this child? What life did she live? How did she die? And how should her remains be treated? For years, the skeleton was displayed, passed between private collectors, its origins clouded by silence and story. Eventually, calls were made to return her to Chile, to give her the dignity and burial owed to any human life. In the scientific record, Ada now belongs to a rare category of extreme human mutation. She is studied as a unique case, not as an outlier from another world, but as a remarkable example of biology's unpredictable path. Yet for many, that explanation feels too simple. Not incorrect, but incomplete. Because when something so small and strange is found in a place so ancient and vast, it speaks not just of medicine or genetics, but to something older. It reminds us that the world still holds forms we do not recognize, bodies shaped by forces we don't fully understand, lives lived on the edges of what we can explain. Ada lies quiet now, her 6-inch frame no longer surrounded by speculation or spotlight. But her image remains: the tilted head, the long skull, the eyes that seem almost to look back. Whether human anomaly or messenger of something more, she represents the most powerful mystery of all, that even the smallest among us can carry a story too large to fully tell. High above Earth, where silence wraps around the planet like a dark curtain, an object drifts in orbit. It's not listed among modern satellites. It wasn't launched by any space agency. And yet, there it is, captured in photographs, tracked on radar, seen by astronauts. They call it the Black Knight satellite, though no one can say for sure what it is, or why it's there. The story begins long before the first man-made satellites were launched. In the 1950s, both American and Soviet monitoring stations detected strange signals coming from space, radio bursts that didn't match any known source. At first, they were dismissed as background noise. But some scientists believe the signals followed a pattern as if encoded. Then came reports of an object in polar orbit, a path no satellite had yet taken. It moved differently. It wasn't associated with any known space program. Over time, fragments of information began to surface. Photographs taken during the 1998 STS-88 space shuttle mission showed a dark, oddly shaped object hovering in low Earth orbit. Its angular, asymmetric form made it hard to identify, not round like a satellite dish, not smooth like a fuel tank. It seemed almost sculptural, like something designed with purpose but unknown function. NASA later explained the object as a thermal blanket, accidentally lost during a spacewalk, and indeed, comparisons show similarities. The story fits, the shape, the timing. But not everyone accepts that answer, because the legend of the Black Knight doesn't begin with a photograph. It begins with a presence. Some trace it back to Nikola Tesla, who in 1899 picked up unusual signals on his Colorado Springs receiver, Rhythmic pulses he believed were not natural. Others connected to long-duration echoes, strange radio signals that bounce back seconds after transmission, unexplained and inconsistent, as if relayed by something listening. In the 1960s, Scottish researcher Duncan Lunnan studied these echoes and proposed that they could be messages from a satellite placed in orbit thousands of years ago. He claimed to decode a message, one that spoke a star system 13,000 years distant in time. The theory was dismissed, but the idea stayed. A watcher in the sky, silent, observing. There's no official record of such a satellite. No known mission placed it there. No catalog debris matches its orbit and shape. And yet the images remain, floating in public archives. A dark form, turning slowly above the world, casting long shadows over clouds and sea. To some, the black night is simply misidentified space junk, a thermal shroud, a floating piece of equipment lost during a mission. To others, it is something more, an artifact, an old machine, a visitor, a guardian, watching not for years, but for centuries. Its orbit, if consistent, is peculiar, polar, high, and unusual for typical satellite deployment. Its presence, if real, predates Sputnik and Explorer. Its shape, if not mistaken, doesn't match common designs. It is either a case of misinterpretation layered with myth, or one of the greatest unsolved puzzles just beyond the edge of sight. The Black Knight has become a modern myth, floating between science and speculation. It's been featured in articles, documentaries, conspiracies, and quiet conversations about what might lie just outside our understanding. Yet no one claims ownership. No one retrieves it. No one proves it wrong. It's possible the mystery is nothing more than confusion, a lost blanket given weight by imagination. But it's also possible that the object, real or symbolic, points to a deeper truth, that space is not empty, that we are not alone in it, that long before we built rockets and reached for the stars, someone or something may have reached us. In the vast silence of orbit, the Black Knight drifts, not communicating, not threatening, just there, a shape against the stars, a shadow in the sky, watching, perhaps, waiting, or simply being. We may never know what it is, but its mystery reminds us that even in the age of satellites and surveillance, there are still things above us that cannot be easily explained. Above us, day after day, the sun rises without fail. It blazes across the sky, consistent and unwavering, casting its warmth over oceans, forests, cities, and skin. It is a presence so familiar that we rarely question it. And yet when scientists peer into the cosmos, studying other stars in our galaxy, a curious truth emerges. Our sun is unusual, not in size, not in temperature, but in temperament. It is too stable, too calm, too perfect. This phenomenon has a name, the solar paradox. Most stars similar to the sun in mass and age show irregularities. They flare, they pulse. Their magnetic fields twist into chaos, releasing massive outbursts of radiation and plasma. These violent fluctuations are normal, but our sun doesn't behave that way, or at least not in the same measure. It pulses gently, breathes quietly, and holds steady year after year, decade after decade. Solar activity does vary, cycling through periods of sunspots and solar wind. But compared to its stellar siblings, the sun seems restrained. Its light output changes by only a fraction of a percent. Its solar flares, though powerful, are modest by cosmic standards. For billions of years, it has burned in a way that nurtures, not scorches, life. This quietness is part of what allows Earth to thrive. Without violent fluctuations in radiation, life has had time to evolve. Climates have remained relatively stable. Oceans have stayed liquid. Atmospheres intact. A slightly more chaotic sun could have boiled away the early seas or stripped away the fragile gases that cradle our world. But it didn't. It has remained, in a sense, unusually well-behaved. Why? That's the heart of the paradox. We know stars go through cycles. We know they have magnetic fields that tangle and snap. We understand how fusion generates light and heat. But we don't fully understand why the sun avoids extremes that others seem to display. The models fit mostly, but But the data keeps suggesting that our sun sits quietly apart, a well-tuned anomaly. Some suggest we simply haven't watched long enough, that over greater time scales, the sun will show the same bursts and instability. Others think we caught it at a particularly balanced phase in its life, a golden window of quiet. But still, the mystery stands. When stars of similar class show more noise, more violence, more drama, why does ours hum like a steady violin string? The implications ripple out. If solar stability is rare, then habitable worlds like Earth may be just as rare, or rarer still. Life needs time, consistency, a calm parent star that won't erupt without warning. In that sense, the sun may be more than an ordinary star. It may be one of the few that sings the quiet tune life can follow. Some have even speculated, cautiously and with poetic intent, that the sun seems designed for life, its light perfectly aligned with the peak sensitivity of human vision, its warmth just enough to support liquid water, its fluctuations gentle, like the breathing of something alive. But science prefers questions to declarations. The solar paradox remains an open page, filled with numbers and observations, but not yet with clarity. Each new space probe, each solar satellite, listens a little closer, watches a little longer, trying to find a rhythm behind the calm. There's a kind of quiet reverence in that search, because even in its silence, the sun speaks. It lights not only our world, but our understanding. It is a mystery we live within, not far off in space, but present in every shadow cast, every leaf warmed, every breath drawn under its sky. One day, far in the future, the sun will change. It will swell, cool, and shed its outer layers. But for now, it burns with perfect moderation, as if holding its breath for us, as if keeping time not just for planets and seasons, but for the stories that have grown beneath its light. The solar paradox reminds us that even the most constant things hold mysteries, that stability itself may be rare, and that the quietest fires may be the ones that last the longest. Deep beneath the surface of Malta, carved into ancient stone more than 5,000 years ago, lies the hypogeum of Halsaflini, a subterranean temple unlike any other. Winding passages, burial chambers, and sanctuaries stretch through the rock in quiet complexity, layered in levels like a spiral leading downward into the earth. But within this prehistoric structure, one room holds a mystery that continues to puzzle scientists, archaeologists, and seekers alike. A chamber that hums when spoken into, a space where sound behaves differently. They call it the oracle chamber. The room is modest in size, its walls smooth and curved with intention. It's not the largest chamber in the hypogeum, nor the most ornate, but its acoustics are extraordinary. A male voice speaking within the chamber triggers a resonance that fills the space, amplifying sound in deep, vibrating waves that seem to pass through the body. Not just heard, but felt. Tests conducted in recent years confirm the effect is real. Frequencies between 90 and 120 hertz, a range common in the male voice, set off a powerful vibration in the stone, reverberating throughout the entire complex. Those standing nearby report sensations of pressure in the chest, shifts in perception, even altered states of awareness. The sound doesn't just bounce off the walls. It surrounds, saturates, envelopes. How did the builders of the hypogeum discover this? How did they shape stone to such precise acoustic perfection, without modern tools or instruments? The chamber's architecture seems designed not for vision, but for sound, the way light would be shaped in a cathedral. Here, it's vibration that is sculpted and held. Some believe the oracle chamber was used for ritual, that priests or shamans stood within it, chanting or singing, allowing their voices to resonate to the structure, altering the consciousness of those present. The resonance, they suggest, could amplify emotional or spiritual states, deepen meditative focus, or even induce trance. Others wonder if it was a form of early technology, an acoustic device built not to worship, but to explore the limits of awareness. The chamber has no sharp edges. Its curves are deliberate. It responds most strongly to specific tones, not too high, not too low. These are not accidents. They're the fingerprints of knowledge long forgotten. Knowledge of sound as force, of space as instrument, of the body as something that can be changed through vibration. There are ancient traditions around the world that speak of sound as sacred. Chants in temples, harmonics in pyramids, mantras that alter breath and thought. The oracle chamber seems to hold a piece of this global puzzle, rooted in time before written history, preserved beneath stone. No texts remain from the builders, no inscriptions, no records. The people who carved the hypogeum left only silence, and this resonance. Their voices are gone, but the space still speaks. To anyone who stands within it and makes a sound, the chamber answers. Some visitors describe a sense of expansion while inside, as if sound bend the edges of awareness. Others feel dizziness or calm, or a sense of connection they cannot explain. It is not just echo. It is something deeper, a hum that brushes against thought itself. The hypogeum is closed to most now, protected to preserve its fragile structure. But the studies continue, with microphones, frequency analyzers, and cautious curiosity. The oracle chamber remains untouched, unchanged, a stone instrument waiting to be played. Whether it was used for prophecy, healing, initiation, or something entirely unknown, the chamber is a reminder that ancient people were not merely builders. They were listeners. They understood sound not only as music, but as tool, as bridge, as a way to touch the unseen. And so it rests beneath the island, in darkness and stillness, holding its quiet song, waiting for another voice to step inside, speak softly, and awaken a room once more. In the vast expanse of northern Mexico's Mapamay Desert, a strange silence hangs in the air, not the ordinary quiet of remote landscapes, but a deeper stillness, as if the world itself forgets to speak. This place is known as a zone of silence, and while it appears like any other stretch of arid land, those who visit often come away with a lingering sense that something is not quite right. Radios go dead, compasses spin, time seems to stretch, and footsteps feel uncertain. Signals fade without warning. The sky remains empty, but the place feels watched. This is a legend carved from ancient myth. It's a modern mystery, grounded in real phenomena that continue to draw researchers, explorers, and wanderers into its dry embrace. The area gained attention in the 1970s, when a U.S. test missile veered off course and crashed into the zone. Recovery teams noted strange interference in their equipment. Locals shared stories of animals acting unpredictably, light seen in the sky, an eerie feeling of disconnection, from time, from place, from sound itself. Within the zone, electronics frequently fail. Communication devices stop transmitting. Planes report navigational anomalies. Some believe the area acts like a natural Faraday cage, blocking electromagnetic waves, but no clear geological formation fully explains the scale or consistency of the effect. Scientists have studied magnetic concentrations in the rock, trace elements in the soil, and fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field, but still, the silence holds its secrets. Then there are the meteors. Unusually large numbers of meteorites have been found in the zone. Massive iron-rich fragments lie embedded in the soil, some weighing tons, others smaller but no less strange. One theory suggests that the area somehow attracts them, that the magnetic anomalies create a gravitational echo, or that there is something beneath the Earth's crust influencing the sky above. It sounds improbable, and perhaps it is. Yet the evidence remains written in the metal that fell from space and came to rest in this quiet land. Visitors often report changes in perception, losing track of time, feeling watched, or hearing distant, mechanical sounds where no machines are present. Shadows seem to move without wind. Tracks vanish without explanation. In the absence of radio noise, the silence is complete, a silence not of absence, but of presence, as if something vast and invisible presses against the atmosphere. The desert itself is beautiful, wide plains framed by distant mountains, scattered with cactus and wind-smoothed stones. But here, nature feels intensified. The sun seems sharper, the stars more numerous, and the sense of isolation is more than distance. It's as though the land itself exists on a slightly different frequency, close to our own but not entirely the same. There are stories, of course, passed among locals and quietly shared by those who stayed too long. Tales of figures seen at night, glowing in the dark, of strange visitors who vanish when approached, of travelers losing time and returning with no memory of hours past. These stories are not shouted, but whispered, like campfire smoke drifting into the dusk. Some suggest the zone lies on a ley line, a place of ancient Earth energy. Others say it sits atop a buried impact crater or a geological structure that disrupts fields we do not yet fully understand. A few believe it a natural observatory, placed perfectly for cosmic events, or perhaps something left behind by intelligence beyond our own. But no definitive answers come. And maybe that's what gives the zone its power, not just the anomalies, but the way it resists explanation. It invites us to pause, to notice the things we often overlook. The way silence can feel heavy, the way time can twist, the way presence can be felt without proof. The zone of silence is not haunted in the traditional sense. There are no ghosts in the shadows, no curses in the stones. But it is a place that hums just outside of ordinary life, a space where the rules bend gently, where the mind slows, and where the earth seems to listen instead of speak. It does not ask for belief. It does not need an audience. It simply is, stretching quietly beneath the sun, holding its stillness like a secret, collecting stars from the sky and signals from the air, one by one in silence. Far below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, past the reach of light, warmth, and memory, lies a place few have ever seen, the Mariana Trench. It is the deepest known point on Earth, a silent scar on the planet's crust that plunges nearly 7 miles into darkness. Down there, beyond the grasp of most machines, beyond where any sunlight can follow, the rules of life begin to bend. At these depths, the pressure is crushing, over 1,000 times what we feel at sea level. Temperatures hover near freezing. The water is black, still, and ancient. Yet, against all odds, something lives there. Many things, in fact. Strange creatures that glow in the dark. Organisms with translucent skin, jelly-like forms, and features that seem shaped by imagination more than evolution. Life here has adapted not just to survive, but to thrive in a place once thought lifeless. In 2012, a deep-sea probe recorded a sound, long, rising, almost organic, echoing from the trench. It wasn't a whale, and it wasn't a machine. It came from somewhere deep and unknown. Scientists called it the Western Pacific Biotwang. Like so much else in the trench, it remains unexplained. Exploration here is rare and always difficult. Only a few missions have reached the bottom, including the famous dive by filmmaker James Cameron in 2012. What they found is a world that feels both familiar and alien. Sea cucumbers gliding across the seafloor, shrimp with no pigment, microbial life feeding on chemicals instead of sunlight. Some bacteria feed on hydrogen and methane, surviving not on photosynthesis but on chemosynthesis, converting minerals into energy. Others have been found inside rocks, living in tiny pockets beneath the seafloor. These life forms challenge our definitions. They suggest that life, if it can exist here, might exist in places once ruled out, beneath the ice of Europa, in the methane lakes of Titan, or in the deep crusts of distant planets. But the trench holds more than biology. It also carries the weight of geological forces. Tectonic plates crashing, slipping, pulling the crust down into the Earth's mantle. It is a place where the planet recycles itself, swallowing ancient seafloor and pushing mountains elsewhere into the sky. Chemical anomalies are found in the waters, high levels of chlorine, strange metallic signatures, gases that seep from vents without clear origin. And then there are the creatures that seem to defy logic, amphipod with pressure-resistant shells, fish that glide through near-boiling vents, life forms that collapse under light, but blossom in blackness. These are not monsters, but they are strange, adapted not for beauty, but for survival. They move slowly, silently, as if aware they live in a place not meant to be touched. The Mariana Trench also hides our own debris. Even here, plastic fibers and chemical traces have been found, sunk through miles of water, proof that nowhere is fully untouched. But even surrounded by traces of us, this deep world remains resistant to understanding, a place of ancient silence, a space beyond reach. Scientists continue to study samples, listen for unknown sounds, send probes deeper with each passing year. But still, most of the trench remains unseen, unmapped. It is the most extreme frontier on our own planet, darker than any cave, more distant than any mountain. And yet, it's here, below us, not on another world, but part of this one. The Mariana Trench reminds us that alien landscapes don't require space travel. They exist beneath the waves, in places where light has never fallen, where pressure builds without limit, and where life has found a way to spite everything. It asks us not just what we know, but how much we've never even begun to see. In the depths, Time feels different. Movement is slow. Sound travels strangely. Shapes appear and vanish in the glare of a passing light. The deeper we go, the more the world transforms. And somewhere at the very bottom, beneath the layers of water, silence, and pressure, the earth listens unchanged, untouched, waiting. In the summer of 2001, the skies over Kerala in southern India opened. Not with the usual monsoon, but with something stranger. The rain that fell was red. Not tinged, not stained, but vividly, unmistakably crimson, as if the sky itself had bled. For weeks, from July to September, this red rain fell intermittently across the region. It stained clothes, soaked the earth, and puzzled everyone beneath it. At first, explanations were simple. Perhaps it was dust, carried by winds from the desert of Arabia. But local scientists took samples, looked closely, and found something unexpected. Suspended in the rainwater were tiny particles, cells, it seemed, organic in shape and texture. Microscopic, spherical, or ovoid, with thick outer walls, they resembled biological spores. But under testing, something didn't add up. The cells lacked DNA. This finding raised more questions than it answered. All known life on Earth carries DNA or RNA as its blueprint. Without it, a cell is not a cell as we understand it, not a living organism by any traditional measure. And yet, these particles showed signs of resilience. They could withstand extreme heat. Some even seemed to multiply when exposed to high temperatures, a behavior bordering on the biological. Still, no genetic material could be extracted. No known species matched. Theories bloomed, like the very spore scientists were now studying. One group proposed a terrestrial origin, algae or fungal spores released into the atmosphere by a local event, perhaps a meteor explosion high above. Others revisited the desert dust theory, suggesting the coloration came from minerals suspended in the air. But repeated analysis found no supporting evidence. The red particles were too uniform, too numerous, and too distinct from common dust or pollen. Then came the more speculative ideas, that the particles were extraterrestrial, that a comet or meteor had seeded the atmosphere with alien microorganisms. The timing of the rain, following reports of a meteor sighting and loud booms in the area, seemed to support the idea. If true, it would represent something extraordinary, not just life beyond Earth, but life delivered into our sky, drifting down with the monsoon. Most scientists remain cautious. The alien hypothesis, while fascinating, is difficult to test. Others point out that some extreme forms of life, extremophiles, do exist on Earth that can survive harsh conditions, and that perhaps these red cells are just another form we haven't yet cataloged. But the missing DNA remains a puzzle. Over time, the red rain stopped. The skies cleared. The mystery faded from headlines. But the questions remain, suspended in the quiet spaces between science and wonder. In the years since, new samples have been studied, new methods applied. Some researchers claim DNA has since been detected, suggesting a rare type of lichen or algae. Others argue that the original mystery was never fully resolved, that early tests showed something unusual, something not quite of this world, even if later studies try to fold it back into the familiar. Kerala's red rain endures not just as an anomaly, but as a reminder that even now, in an age of satellite imaging and genome sequencing, the sky can still surprise us. That rain, something as ordinary as weather, can carry strangeness in its drops. Perhaps it was alien. Perhaps it was simply unknown. But as the red water pooled in the streets, soaked into the soil, and ran in thin streams through quiet villages, it carried with a question, not just where it came from, but of how much more we have yet to see. Rain falls every day somewhere on Earth. Most of it forgotten, unnoticed, washed away. But once in Kerala it fell red, and the Earth, and maybe something beyond it, watched in silence. In the quiet forests of northern Minnesota, tucked within Judge C.R. Magny State Park, a river runs cold and clear. It flows over smooth stone, winding through pine trees and moss-covered banks, until it reaches a place that defies explanation. The Brule River, known for its beauty, does something here that rivers aren't supposed to do. It splits. One half continues downward, tumbling over rocks and joining the river's flow. But the other half, it disappears. It doesn't slow, it doesn't swirl. It plunges directly into a deep, dark hole carved into solid stone. This is a devil's kettle, a natural mystery with a name that matches its behavior. The water goes in. Nothing comes out. Over the years, scientists, hikers, and curious visitors have tried to solve it. They've poured dyes into the hole, hoping to see the color reappear downstream. It never does. They've dropped ping-pong balls, sticks, and brightly colored markers. None return. Some have even lowered GPS trackers, only to lose the signal entirely. It's as if the Earth simply swallows whatever the kettle takes, refusing to explain. Geologists have examined surrounding rock. The area is formed from volcanic basalt, full of cracks and crevices, a landscape shaped by ancient lava flows. Some believe the water disappears into a network of underground fissures, traveling through channels we cannot see, but no one has mapped them. No one has found the exit. Others speculate the water rejoins the river quietly, at a point too small or hidden to detect. But the volume of water that vanishes is significant. You can see it, feel the spray, hear the thunder of it disappearing. If it comes out somewhere nearby, why has no one seen it? More dramatic theories have emerged over the years. Underground lakes, collapsed lava tubes, even the idea of a bottomless pit, a crack, so deep the water never returns. These ideas remain unproven, but they speak to something real, the sense that this place does not obey simple explanation. It isn't just a hole in the rock. It's a gap in understanding, a place where observation breaks down, where efforts to trace and test yield nothing. The Devil's Kettle has become more than a geological oddity. It's a symbol of the unknown hidden within the everyday. People walk the trail, stand at the overlook, and stare into the rushing water. It's mesmerizing, hypnotic, the way the river divides so cleanly, the way one half continues on, familiar and predictable, while the other slips away into darkness without a trace. In 2017, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources released a study suggesting that the missing water likely does return to the river downstream, that the mystery may have more to do with the difficulty of tracing small markers through turbulent currents than with any truly vanishing stream. But the explanation remains tentative. The visual mystery, that dramatic disappearance, still stirs doubt and wonder, because even if the science is correct, the feeling remains. Watching water disappear into solid rock and never reappear is unsettling. It challenges trust in cause and effect, in motion and continuity. It makes something as steady as a river seem uncertain. Nature often hides its complexity behind simplicity. Rivers flow, stones rest, waterfalls. But here, in this forest, those roles shift. The river misbehaves. The stone opens. And water, the most familiar of elements, becomes something mysterious again. The Devil's Kettle reminds us that not all mysteries are distant. Some live in plain sight. Some wear the shape of beauty. Some whisper not with strangeness, but with silence. A silence that begins the moment water touches the edge of the unknown and vanishes into stone. We may one day explain it entirely. We may trace every drop, chart every twist beneath the surface. But even then, the moment will remain, the sight of water falling into nothing, the world pausing, puzzled, at a hole that answers nothing and takes everything. In the vast stretch of the South Pacific, where waves roll endlessly beneath open sky, there was once an island. It appeared on maps, resting between Australia and New Caledonia, a narrow stretch of land labeled Sandy Island. Black in shape, small in size, it was marked on charts for over 100 years. Ships had avoided it. Weather reports noted it. Even Google Earth showed it. But in 2012, a group of Australian scientists sailed to its exact coordinates and found nothing. Not a shoreline, not a reef, not even shallow waters. Just open sea, nearly a mile deep. The scientists, aboard the research vessel RV Southern Surveyor, were mapping the seabed and verifying geographic data. Sandy Island had appeared in databases for decades, but when their instruments reached the spot, there was no landmass at all, no evidence that land had ever been there, only deep, blue water and a quiet stretch of ocean. The discovery, or rather the lack of one, made headlines. How could an island be mapped, referenced, and believed in, only to vanish without a trace? And more intriguingly, How had it been included on charts in the first place? Historical maps dating back to the 19th century show the island's name. A whaling ship is believed to have recorded a landmass in the area in the late 1800s. Later maps copied the reference, and as cartography became digital, the island's name migrated from paper to screen. Over time, its presence was accepted, not questioned, just repeated. This phenomenon, where an error perpetuates through repetition, has a name in map-making: a phantom island. Cartographers sometimes included fictitious landmasses either by accident or design, based on misread reports, shadows, cloud banks, or even deliberate deception. Some were added to expose unauthorized copying, known as copyright traps. But Sandy Island seemed different. Its inclusion wasn't an outlier. It was widely accepted. It appeared on respected nautical charts and scientific datasets, and even satellite-generated maps. Yet, none of these systems ever truly verified it. The island became a placeholder, a shadow of assumption. When the researchers corrected the record in 2012, the digital world was forced to catch up. Google removed it. Nautical databases were revised. But the mystery lingered. How could something non-existent endure for so long in the shared framework of knowledge? Some suggest the original sighting was a pumice raft, a floating mass of volcanic stone, large enough to be mistaken for land. Others think a low-lying reef might have temporarily risen due to unusual tides or tectonic activity, only to submerge again. But the ocean depth at the site doesn't support these theories easily. There is no raised seabed, no coral, no wreckage, nothing to hint at a vanished island. Sandy Island may never have existed, but it was believed in. For over a century, it lived on maps, in shipping routes, in the minds of navigators and scientists. It influenced behavior. It occupied space. Its reality was not in the ocean, but in the records we trusted. That is perhaps the deeper mystery. Not the missing land, but the way we built belief around it. How data, once entered, persists. How ideas are passed on, rarely questioned, until something real comes to challenge them. Sandy Island is now a ghost in the digital age. A reminder that not all mistakes are obvious, and not all knowledge is verified. Even with satellites and sensors, we still carry echoes of older maps, older minds, older errors. In the end, the island that wasn't become more famous than if it had been real. It teaches caution. It teaches wonder. It shows that even in a world mapped and measured, there are still places that can surprise us, not because they exist, but because we believe they did. Where once a landmass sat on the screen, now there is only blue. The ocean moves quietly over the coordinates, as it always has, unaware that its emptiness once held a name. In the far northwest of Venezuela, where the Catatumbo River meets Lake Maracaibo, something strange happens almost every night. The sky lights up not once, but hundreds of times. Bolts of lightning crackle in silence, arcing above the water in brilliant flashes, again and again for hours. There is no rain, no thunder, no storm clouds rolling in, just light, flickering like breath in the dark, returning every evening as if the sky itself is alive. This natural phenomenon is called the Catatumbo lightning. It occurs roughly 260 nights a year, sometimes for 10 hours at a time. At its peak, the flashes can strike up to 280 times per hour. From a distance, it looks like a cosmic heartbeat, distant veins of electricity pulsing over the horizon. But it isn't random. It happens in the same place, year after year, decade after decade, even as weather elsewhere shifts and changes. Scientists have studied the region and found that the unique geography plays a part. Warm, humid air from the Caribbean meets cooler mountain air from the Andes. These opposing forces rise, collide, and trigger electrical discharges high in the atmosphere. But this only explains part of it, because lightning happens everywhere, but not like this. Not with such precision, not with such repetition, and not with such eerie silence. Unlike typical storms, Catatumbo lightning rarely brings thunder to the ground. Most of the electrical activity is cloud to cloud, too high to create the rolling booms we associate with storms. The silence adds to its surreal quality. Lightning without the warning, without the crash. Just sudden, quiet bursts of light in the darkness. For centuries, this glowing sky has guided sailors navigating the treacherous waters of Lake Maracaibo. It has been called the Lighthouse of Catatumbo, a natural beacon visible from over 200 miles away. Long before radar and GPS, it was nature's own compass. But to the local indigenous communities, the phenomenon is more than just weather. It is sacred, a sign from the gods, a voice in the night sky. Some say the lightning carries messages. Others believe it is the earth releasing energy, a balance of elements that holds spiritual meaning. The stillness of the lake beneath the constant flickering adds a dreamlike intensity, like watching time stutter. There are even stories that the lightning saved Venezuela. In 1823, during the Venezuelan War of Independence, Spanish ships attempted a nighttime attack across the lake, but the lightning illuminated their approach, exposing them before they could strike. The revolutionaries were ready. The story endures, part history, part legend. In modern times, satellites monitor the flashes. Scientists note how the frequency of lightning has fluctuated, sometimes slowing, sometimes vanishing altogether for weeks. Climate, pollution, and wind patterns may all influence it, but no one fully controls it. It remains, even in the age of data and satellites, an unpredictable phenomenon. The Catatumbo lightning is also a major source of atmospheric ozone regeneration. While not contributing to protective ozone layer itself, the unique chemical reactions in the region's sky create ozone in the lower atmosphere, a curious side effect of such regular electrical activity. Still, questions remain. Why here and only here does the scale of lightning persist with such devotion? Why does it follow its own schedule, returning like a ritual more than a storm? Why does it fade some years and then return as if on pause? Those who visit the region often describe the experience as hypnotic. Sitting by the water, watching the sky flicker over and over, without noise or explanation, feels less like science and more like poetry. The kind of poetry the planet writes in silence, with wind and water and sparks that never land. And in that silence, perhaps, lies a true mystery. Because Catatumbo isn't just about weather. It's about rhythm. The rhythm of a place untouched by full explanation. A place where the sky remembers something the rest of the world forgot. Light without thunder. Movement without sound. A storm that never truly arrives and never truly ends. It is as if the earth is trying to speak, not in words, but in pulse, in flash, in glow. And we, below it, still don't understand what it's saying. Out in the vast reaches of space, where galaxies drift and stars are born and swallowed, there exists a theory, elegant, haunting, and unconfirmed. It begins with what we know. Black holes. These cosmic furnaces devour everything, even light. Once something crosses their event horizon, it is never seen again. Time slows, matter stretches, and then silence. But if there are black holes, objects that consume, could there be their opposite? White holes, objects that expel. The idea is not just science fiction. It emerges directly from equations of general relativity, the same mathematics that predicted black holes before we ever saw them. A white hole, in theory, is a region of space-time where matter is ejected, not absorbed. Nothing can enter, only exit. It is a reverse of collapse. A fountain where a vacuum once stood, a cosmic exhale. And yet, we've never observed one. White holes would be chaotic, bright, brief, like a burst of energy erupting from nothing, scattering matter into the void. Some believe white holes could be connected to black holes through a tunnel in space-time called a wormhole. In this vision, matter swallowed in one part of the universe might reappear elsewhere, pushed out by a white hole in a distant galaxy. Not lost, just moved. Others go further. Could the Big Bang itself, the birth of our universe, have been a white hole? A single eruption of light and matter from an unknowable point? If so, then perhaps we live inside the result of such an event, expanding ever outward from a white hole so ancient that it predates time as we know it. But the mystery deepens. Some physicists suggest that white holes may already exist. We simply don't recognize them. Fast radio bursts, strange gamma flashes, or unexplained regions of energy might be signatures of these elusive fountains. But the evidence is thin, the the signals faint. The cosmos, vast as it is, remains tight-lipped. One obstacle is thermodynamics, the laws of heat and disorder. Black holes increase entropy. They make things less ordered. White holes, in contrast, seem to reverse this. They would create sudden order, ejecting organized matter into a chaotic universe. And this, science struggles to explain. It's like running time backwards, like watching smoke return to a flame. Still, the possibility haunts the edges of theory. In a universe governed by symmetry, where every force and particle has its counterbalance, why wouldn't a white hole exist to mirror the black? And then, of course, there's a poetic pull. If black holes are symbols of disappearance, of the ultimate end, then white holes suggest beginnings, rebirth, resurrection, inescapable collapse followed by impossible release. Even if we never see one, the concept bends a mind toward questions larger than equations. It asks us to imagine a universe that doesn't just take, but gives back, where what vanishes is not destroyed, only transformed, where destruction and creation are not opposites, but partners in an ancient dance of light and gravity. Astronomers continue to search. Telescopes point at the sky, watching for the improbable. For the moment something erupts where nothing should be, a blink of light in the endless dark. And so we wait, eyes open, listening for the soundless thunder of a white hole somewhere far away, or maybe close by, just outside the edge of knowing. In the hushed woods of Chestnut Ridge Park in western New York, where streams meander and moss grows thick on stone, a curious thing happens. A gentle waterfall spills over shale and sediment, unremarkable to most eyes, yet tucked behind its cascade is something extraordinary, a flame. Small, steady, and golden, it flickers in defiance of logic, dancing behind a veil of falling water. They call it the eternal flame falls. It is a sight that seems impossible. Fire, sustained and alive, burning within the damp embrace of a waterfall. The very idea contradicts everything we assume about flame and flow, about air and water, about what should extinguish what. And yet, the flame persists, fed by something unseen beneath the earth. At first glance, the explanation seems straightforward. Natural gas. Seeping from a pocket deep below the surface, the gas escapes through fractured rock and ignites, either sparked long ago by human hands or spontaneously by the heat of friction. A geological oddity, nothing more. But then come the questions. Most natural gas seeps require high temperatures in deep, pressurized chambers, conditions typically found much farther underground. Here, in Chestnut Ridge, the rock is shallow. The temperature is low. The gas emissions, according to studies, aren't sufficient to sustain a flame this long, this steadily. And yet it burns. Scientists have studied the site. Some have concluded that the shale formation beneath the waterfall is unusually fractured, allowing gas to escape more freely than in other locations. Others suggest that unknown microseepages, or deeper, yet undetected pockets, might explain the flame's endurance. Still, nothing about it fits neatly within what we expect from geology. And then there is the flame itself. It is not large. It does not roar. It does not blaze brightly into the night. Instead, it glows quietly, as if it knows it does not need to shout to be seen. It flickers as wind and water move, bending but not breaking. Sometimes it is extinguished by weather or mischief, but each time it returns, relit by hikers or the curious, yes, but also, some say, as if it chooses to remain. For the Seneca people, the native inhabitants of this land, the flame held spiritual meaning, a symbol of continuity, of earth's breath, of quiet mysteries that do not beg to be solved. And that is perhaps the gift of the eternal flame falls. It is not a riddle to crack or a problem to solve. It is a reminder that the earth, old and wise, still holds spaces where contradiction is not a flaw but a feature, where water and fire coexist not in battle but in balance. Visitors come quietly. They crouch beside the flame, their faces lit gold in the falling water's glow. They speak softly, or not at all. Something about the place humbles, not in grandeur, but in gentleness. In a world that often celebrates the loud, the vast, the spectacular, the eternal flame offers another way. It burns because it can, because something deep below breathes upward, because in one small hollow behind a waterfall, the rules bend not to chaos but to beauty. It does not demand attention. It does not explain itself. And so it endures, quietly, mysteriously, faithfully, aflame, in water, in forest, in stillness, in the great library of the night sky. Stars are not expected to disappear. They are born in nebulae, blaze for millions or billions of years, and eventually fade, in predictable, observable ways. Supernovae, white dwarfs, collapses into black holes. These are the known endings, the cosmic rhythms that astronomers have traced with care and confidence. And yet, some stars simply vanish. No explosion, no fading, no afterglow, just gone. In recent years, scientists cross-referencing sky surveys from past decades, some stretching as far back as the 1950s, discovered something strange. Images once showed bright, catalog stars. But in more recent photos, those same stars are no longer there. Not dimmed, not hidden behind gas. Missing. One study, led by the Vasco Project, vanishing and appearing sources during a century of observations, identified nearly 100 such anomalies, sources of light recorded in early sky surveys that now show empty space. In a universe where even the death of a star leaves an echo, the silence is profound. The first assumption is always error. Perhaps the original photographic plates were flawed. Perhaps cosmic rays or camera glitches created ghost images, artifacts mistaken for stars. Astronomers are careful, skeptical by nature. They search for simpler answers. But the patterns don't always allow them. Some of these vanished lights were steady, consistent across multiple historical exposures. Some appeared in known constellations. Some were too bright to be dismissed as tricks of film or dust. Could they be stars that collapsed directly into black holes without a supernova? A rare but theoretically possible fate. Could they be fast-moving objects like asteroids or rogue planets that only look like stars and still images, and then move on? Perhaps. Yet again, the data resists full explanation. Others have suggested something more unsettling. What if we are seeing signs of cosmic cloaking, the deliberate shrouding of light by advanced civilizations, a kind of interstellar invisibility? The idea is not so far-fetched as it sounds. Some theories propose that highly advanced species might cloak stars to harvest their energy or to remain hidden. And then, there is the most whispered possibility of all, that the stars didn't die or hide, but left, that they somehow shifted out of our visible reality, slipped into another dimension, crossed into a parallel fold of space-time, a leap not of distance, but of state. To even imagine this is to stand on the edge of science and story, the boundary where equations fade into awe. Astronomers continue to scan the heavens, comparing old skies to new. Most stars remain faithful and fixed, but every so often, another is found missing, a light that once was and is no longer. And in that absence, we are reminded that even the sky is not as constant as we believe. What does it mean for a star to vanish without a sound? Perhaps it is nothing, a trick of old glass and grain. Or perhaps it is a signal, not to alarm, but to awaken. A quiet message from the cosmos that says, not all is known, not all is settled, not all is fixed in place. Some lights do not fade. They depart. And the map of the stars, once thought eternal, shifts gently, with gaps that call not for fear, but for wonder. In the warm quiet of Homestead, Florida, stands a structure that seems to breathe its own silence, heavy with questions, yet gently enduring. The Coral Castle, a complex of intricately balanced stone monuments, is not grand like the pyramids is compared to, but in its stillness, it holds the same hush of ancient riddle. It was built by one man, Edward Leedskounen, a Latvian immigrant, barely 5 feet tall and weighing less than 100 pounds. Working alone, mostly at night, using hand tools and no heavy machinery, Ed moved and carved over 1,100 tons of coral rock, some blocks weighing more than 30 tons. He never explained how. There are photographs of pulleys, tripods, and levers, but engineers remain puzzled. The precision with which the stones are cut and placed, many interlocking, balanced so perfectly that a child can move a 9-ton gate with one finger. challenges basic understanding of leverage and material control. Ed said little. When asked how he did it, he simply replied, "I understand the laws of weight and leverage." Sometimes he added, "I know the secrets of the pyramids." And nothing more. Some believe he discovered a way to manipulate gravity. Others say he tuned into magnetic frequencies. A few claim he used sound, ancient, resonant tones that could lift stone like a forgotten chant from the earth itself. These are theories, drifting between science and myth with no proof but persistent presence. The Coral Castle includes a stone telescope perfectly aligned with the North Star, a sundial accurate within minutes, a well, a bedroom carved from stone, a throne, a moon fountain, a heart-shaped table. But beneath all the stone lies something more tender. Ed built the castle. Many believe, for love. He was once engaged, back in Latvia, to a woman he called his Sweet 16. She left him before the wedding. He never married, never forgot. Some say every carved bench, every balance rock, is part of a long letter she would never read. The castle was originally called Rock Gate Park. He moved the entire structure, stone by stone, from one site to another, a distance of 10 miles, when land disputes arose. Again, alone. No one saw it happen. Visitors today walk its strange, solemn paths. They feel the chill of stone in the Florida heat. They look up at the 25-foot-tall obelisk. They whisper near the spinning gate. And they wonder, was it genius, obsession, a lost science, or simply love given form? The Coral Castle remains open to the sky. Rain smooths its walls. Time weathers its corners. But the mystery has not eroded. It has deepened, quietly, like roots growing in still earth. Perhaps Ed Leedskounen did know something. Or perhaps his true magic was patience. Faith, a lifelong dance between heartbreak and stone. He left no blueprints, no diary, just this place, massive and motionless, yet somehow alive with silence, not unlike the pyramids, not unlike mystery itself. Sometimes the strongest structures are not those that explain, but those that endure. In the wide, dark blue of the Pacific, where sound travels farther than light and silence holds the weight of centuries, something sings. Not loudly, not quickly, but steadily, a solitary note rising from the deep, a frequency that no other creature seems to echo. 52 hertz. That is the pitch. It is too high for blue whales, too low for fin whales. It sits between known songs, out of step with the rhythms of its kind. And so, no other whales respond. No calls return. No chorus follows. The ocean, for the singer, remains still. This sound was first detected by the U.S. Navy in the late 1980s through underwater microphones meant to monitor submarines. At first, it was a curiosity, then a pattern. Every year, in the same migration season, the same signal moved across the Pacific. Slow, steady, deliberate. A living presence. Scientists began to track it, but they never saw it, never photographed it, only heard it. A ghost song among giants. It became known simply as a 52 hertz whale. Some believe it is a hybrid, born of two species, its vocal cords tuned to a solitary note. Others wonder if it is deaf, unaware that no one answers. Some call it a mistake of nature. Others, a miracle. But whatever it is, it keeps singing. Across thousands of kilometers, it calls out. Each pulse of sound travels far in water, hundreds of miles, and yet no known whale calls back. It is a song without a duet, a conversation without a partner, a voice in the vastness, shaped by a mystery no sonar can resolve. For decades, researchers have listened. Still, they have never found its body, never followed it to the surface. It remains invisible, a melody without a face. Some see in it a symbol of loneliness, of the desire to be heard, a creature built for song, whose voice lies outside the range of its world. It speaks, and the ocean listens, but does not answer. Yet it continues. Each year, again, as if persistence itself is its message, as if the act of calling is enough. There is something quiet and human in that, something tender. We, too, send messages into space, signals meant for no one in particular, in the hope that someone hears. We write in books, knowing not who will read. We speak into the dark. The whale does not know who listens, but it sings. Is it alone in the truest sense? Or does the ocean cradle its song in some way we do not yet understand? In Japan, there are folk tales of lonely kami, spirits whose voices drift through forests, calling gently to no one. The 52 hertz whale feels like one of them, not trapped, not cursed, just singing from a place slightly out of reach. And so it moves beneath the waves, silent to its kin but not to us. Its story is written not in sightings but in sound, not in answers but in resonance. Perhaps it is not alone. Perhaps it is simply first. The first of something else. Something new. Or perhaps it reminds us that being heard is not the same as being understood, and yet still we speak. Still we sing. In the deep, where pressure flattens steel and light cannot enter, one voice continues. 52 hertz. And the ocean does not forget. In the vast tapestry of the cosmos, some stars are written like poems, structure predictable, composed of the same stardust that shaped our own world. Hydrogen, helium, the slow bloom of heavier elements forged in fire. But then, quietly, one star emerged that read like a riddle, a line out of place in the verse of the universe. It is called SMSSJ 031300.36-670839.3, a name not made for memory but for classification. A lonely beacon, discovered by astronomers peering into the southern sky through the Sky Mapper telescope in Australia. This star is old, ancient in fact, not just in terms of human years, but in cosmic time. It likely formed just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang, when the universe was still cooling from its birth. Stars from that era were supposed to be giants, short-lived, burning fast and bright, exploding into supernovae and seeding the cosmos with heavy elements. But this one is small, faint, long-lived, and most confusing of all, it lacks iron. Not a little, almost entirely. The iron content of the star is over 10,000 times lower than the sun's. So low, in fact, it's nearly undetectable. This matters because iron is a marker, a signal that previous generations of stars have lived and died, enriching the universe with heavier elements. A star without iron? It should not exist this late in the timeline. And yet there it is, a survivor from an age of fire, whispering in soft, cool light. Its chemistry is equally baffling. Where there should be abundance of metals, there is instead carbon, rich and unbalanced. Its elemental fingerprints don't match the models, as if it remembers a version of a universe that never happened. Some theorists suggest the star is a relic from a supernova unlike any we've witnessed, one that failed to scatter iron. Others believe it may have formed from the ashes of a single massive star that died without spreading its usual yield. But these are hypotheses with gaps. It stands as a contradiction. A star from the early cosmos, still glowing, still stable, whose very composition challenges the rules we've long held. Could it be an anomaly? Certainly. Science allows for exceptions. But some wonder, what if it's not an exception? What if it's a clue? A fingerprint of another set of laws? A leftover from a version of physics that briefly bloomed, then vanished? There are quiet speculations that perhaps, just perhaps, there were other universes within this one, that early cosmic conditions weren't uniform, that regions of the early sky birthed matter under different forces. If so, this star may be a fossil not just of time, but of possibility. A single light carrying the DNA of a world that nearly was. Astronomers continue to study it, mapping its spectrum, refining their estimates. But it resists clarity. It remains where it always was, alone in the halo of our galaxy, orbiting in a vast ellipse, untouched for billions of years. A witness, a question. In ancient mythology, stars were thought to be the eyes of the gods, watching the earth. This one feels like the opposite. A gaze not from above, but from behind, peering at us from the earliest hours of time. It should not be here, but it is. And so it glows, faint and steady, reminding us that the universe, for all its rules, still keeps secrets. Not every question leads to an answer. Some simply lead us deeper into wonder. In the southern desert of Peru, where the wind is silent and the sun bleaches the earth into a canvas of pale rust, there lies a mystery so vast it can only be truly seen from the sky. The Nazca lines. From the ground, they seem like scratches, shallow trenches drawn across the dust. Easy to overlook, lost among the arid ridges and dunes. But rise above them, and something ancient and staggering reveals itself. A spider, legs extended with geometric grace. A hummingbird mid-hover, its wings etched with near-perfect symmetry. A monkey with a coiled tail. A whale. A tree. Hundreds of shapes, patterns, and vast lines, some straight as an arrow for over 10 miles, stretch across the landscape like an enormous message written not for those on the earth, but for eyes in the air. And that is where the mystery begins. The Nazca culture flourished between 200 BCE and 600 CE. They were skilled artisans, known for their pottery and irrigation systems. But the lines? They never left an explanation. No inscriptions. No guides. Just the marks in the soil, shallow furrows scraped away to reveal the lighter clay beneath. They weren't visible in their entirety from the ground. No nearby mountains offer full vantage. It wasn't until aircraft flew over in the 20th century that their full beauty was uncovered. And with it, the bewilderment. How did a people without flight conceive such aerial scale art? Were they meant for gods watching from the heavens? Astronomical calendars? Ritual pathways walked during ceremonies of fertility, rain, or rebirth. Some lines do align with solstices. Others seem to map constellations or celestial events. Yet others go nowhere at all, leading off into the vast nothing. And then there's the precision. The Nazca didn't use wheels, didn't have metal tools. Yet the proportions, angles, and execution suggest complex planning. Many shapes were started without visible errors or corrections, as if guided by a blueprint or system we no longer understand. Over time, theories multiplied. Erich von Däniken famously proposed that the lines were runways for alien spacecraft, a suggestion widely criticized but enduring in popular imagination. Others see them as musical symbols, agricultural calendars, or reflections of shamanic visions. But the desert itself may be the key. The Nazca region is one of the driest places on Earth, receiving less than an inch of rain per year. The soil has a dark, oxidized surface layer, but just beneath lies a lighter hue. This contrast made it possible to draw by removing just a few inches of stone, and the arid climate preserved the lines for centuries. So, perhaps, in the quiet of the desert, the Nazca people were not trying to communicate upward, but inward. Some archaeologists now believe the lines were meant to be walked, that they were ceremonial paths, guiding participants through rituals of transformation or devotion, a kind of movement meditation carved into the earth. Others suggest the shapes, the animals and plants, were symbolic prayers for fertility, water, and survival in a harsh world. And then there are those who insist that the mystery is the point, that these shapes were never meant to be solved, but to be seen and wondered about. In modern times, the lines face threats from development, mining, and even curious visitors. A single footprint can disturb what has lasted 2,000 years. Still, they remain. Out there in the desert, they wait. Vast shapes too large to grasp from where we stand. Images made by hands we'll never meet, intended for an audience we cannot define. Perhaps the Nazca knew that some messages are only meant to be seen when one is far enough away, when one is quiet enough. And so we look, from planes, from satellites, from the edge of understanding. And the lines stare back, carve into the silence, reminding us that some stories are told best not in words, but in wonder. In the far reaches of Siberia, beyond the last outposts of villages and the hush of boreal trees, a wound opens in the earth. It is not quiet. It creaks. It groans. It widens with every passing year. Locals call it by an old name, the gateway to the underworld. To scientists, it is known as the Batagaika crater. But crater is only a word, one that struggles to hold the scale and eeriness of this formation. Nearly a kilometer long and growing, it slices through the frozen forest like a scar that refuses to heal. The land is collapsing inward, folding open the secrets of time. This began decades ago in the 1960s, when the forest around the area was cleared. Without tree cover to insulate the ground, the permafrost, frozen soil that had remained untouched for millennia, began to thaw, slowly at first, then with force. The ground softened, lost its structure. Ice melted, the topsoil sank, and a depression formed. What followed was something no one expected. A yawning chasm that grew with each thaw cycle, exposing ancient layers of earth, frozen animals, and the breath of the past itself. To the native Yakut people, the sound of the Batagaika is more than geology. It hums, rumbles, and moans as if the earth itself is restless. In their stories, the ground that opens is a passageway, not just to the past, but to other worlds beneath. Some nights, it emits sounds that resemble distant thunder or the low grumble of something breathing far below. These sounds, recorded on scientific instruments and heard with human ears, have no clear origin. They emerge from the depths and fade just as quickly, leaving only speculation in their place. What the Batagaika reveals is a timeline older than memory. As the walls collapse, they uncover ancient forests, long-buried plant life, and even the remains of Ice Age animals. Horses, mammoths, bison, seeds that haven't felt air in tens of thousands of years now lie under open sky. Scientists view it as an unintentional time machine. The permafrost preserves organic material perfectly, meaning that every collapse brings more pieces of a puzzle long thought unsolvable. Clues to prehistoric climates, lost ecosystems, and genetic traces of life that once roamed across tundras now buried under centuries of silence. And yet there's unease. For every discovery, the crater expands, faster now, as the climate warms. It is no longer a natural curiosity, but a symbol of something more urgent, a thaw that won't stop, a gate that won't close. What lies beneath is not just soil. It is methane carbon locked away in frozen chains. As the permafrost melts, these gases are released, invisible, odorless, powerful. They contribute to the very warming that caused the collapse to begin with, the Earth feeding its own fever. But that's the scientific story. The other story, older, quieter, still walks through the woods nearby. Elders speak of animals avoiding the crater, of birds flying wide circles around it. They whisper that the land remembers what it once buried, and now resists exposure. What if the Earth has layers not only of rock and history, but of memory? Some believe that deep below the Batagaika are networks of hidden voids, ancient caverns, or geothermal passages never mapped. They ask whether the Earth, in its quiet way, is speaking, not just with sound, but with gesture, opening something we were never meant to see too clearly. Photographs of the crater from above resemble an eye, a deep, sunken eye gazing upward from the planet's crust. Each year it blinks a little wider. The ice collapses a little deeper. The line between surface and interior blurs. And so the hole continues to grow. No barrier can stop it. No machine can fill it. It deepens in silence, eats away at time, and sings a song no language has translated. What it offers is not threat, but a quiet kind of invitation. To witness, to wonder, to listen to the ground, not for answers, but for echoes. The kind that come not from the surface, but from something beneath it all. A place where warmth meets ice, where memory sleeps beneath moss and stone, where the past is not gone, only buried, and the earth, one breath at a time, exhales it back into light. Deep within the verdant jungles of Costa Rica, scattered across grassy clearings, sugarcane fields, and the ground of old plantations, lie stones that should not be, not in their shape, not in their size, and certainly not in their symmetry. They are nearly perfect spheres, smooth, round, ancient, some the size of a fist, others the size of a car. The largest weighs over 15 tons. And yet, each one bears the unmistakable trace of deliberate creation. They are not natural boulders worn by time. They are carved with intention, with precision, with purpose. But whose hands shaped them? These mysterious orbs are known as the Diquis spheres, named after pre-Columbian Diquis culture that once thrived in the region. Archaeologists have counted over 300 of them so far, unearthed since the 1930s, when banana plantations first uncovered them buried beneath the soil. Some were clustered in groups. Others were found alone, deep in the forest. Some aligned in lines, others in triangles. Some faced the rising sun. But always, always they were round, impossibly round. Their composition is mostly granodiorite, a tough, volcanic stone not native to the exact areas where many spheres were found. That means not only were these stones shaped, they were transported, rolled, floated, carried. There are no carts, no wheels, no beasts of burden in the archaeological record of the region, and no written language to offer explanation. The Dequist left no books, no inscriptions, only these stones. Some scholars believe the spheres were used as markers of social status or political power. Others suggest they were astronomical tools, laid out to follow the movement of the stars, the sun, or the seasons. Yet the alignments remain unclear. Were they guides, maps, boundaries? Perhaps they marked sacred places. Perhaps they were offerings. Or perhaps they were meant to be seen from above, by someone or something who watched the earth from a different vantage. When the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, the stones were already old, forgotten. The people who may have crafted them were long gone. Even the local oral traditions offered little. The mystery, by then, was already in place. During the 20th century, the spheres became collectors' items, moved to gardens, museums, or even shipped overseas. Some were cracked open in search of gold, destroying their integrity. Others were simply ignored. It wasn't until UNESCO declared them part of a World Heritage Site that the world paused to consider what had nearly been lost. For all our modern tools, satellite sonar, radiocarbon dating, the answers remain elusive. The stones are older than we can date precisely. Their surfaces are weathered, their context often disturbed. They remain, stubbornly, as they were discovered, mysterious, majestic, and mute. And so they sit in jungles and fields under rain and birdsong, waiting. Some face each other, as if mid-conversation. Others lie buried beneath roots and vines, half sleeping in the soil. A few, perhaps, have yet to be found, hidden under leaves, shielded by time. We do not know what they meant, but perhaps they were never meant to speak in words. Perhaps the stone itself was a language of form and balance, of movement without machines, of geometry without numbers, of a people who understood the land and sky in a way we no longer do. The spheres roll through the centuries, not with sound, but with presence, perfect, silent enigmas of the rainforest, anchored in mystery, immune to time. They do not ask to be solved, only seen. In the vast stillness of northern Canada, where the forests stretch endlessly and the lakes mirror the sky, lies a quiet peculiarity, one not felt by footsteps or seen by the eye, but measurable nonetheless. In the region around Hudson Bay, gravity is mysteriously weaker. It is not enough to lift a leaf, not enough for a bird to notice mid-flight, but it is there, as real as the cold wind or the moss on ancient stone. Sensitive instruments have confirmed it again and again. Gravity in this region pulls just a little less. The difference is small, just a few microgals, a fraction of a fraction. But in the language of geophysics, even the slightest deviation whispers of deep unseen forces. Scientists have long puzzled over this anomaly, wondering what lies beneath the crust to cause such a measurable dip in gravity's grip. One theory points to the immense weight of glaciers during the last ice age, a time when kilometers of ice pressed down upon the earth like a great frozen hand. When the ice melted, the land began to slowly rise, still rebounding even now, thousands of years later. This post-glacial rebound, they say, might explain the thinning gravitational pull, the earth stretching upward, not yet settled. But the story may run deeper. Another theory suggests a vast mantle plume beneath the crust, a slow, upward current of molten rock that changes the distribution of mass. If gravity depends on mass, and mass is in motion beneath our feet, then perhaps this weakened pull is not a relic of the past, but the breath of something moving below. Still others propose an ancient impact, a colossal meteor that struck this region millions of years ago, leaving behind not only a geological scar, but depression in gravitational balance, a memory of collision buried under soil and time. And then there are those who wonder about the unmeasurable. Could this thinning of gravity be part of something wider, a planet not as stable as it seems, a signal from within the Earth's molten core? Or something else entirely, a gap in our understanding, a flaw in our models, an invitation to explore? The region around Hudson Bay is quiet, remote, frozen for much of the year. Few come here to measure the weight of their own bodies. And yet, if one did, they would find themselves ever so slightly lighter, not in spirit, but in force. There is something poetic in the notion that the earth does not pull equally on all who walk it, that some places allow you, just barely, to rise. The maps of gravity look like watercolor paintings, soft blues and greens, gradient of force across the globe. And in northern Canada, a pale oval glows, a place where gravity hesitates. A pause, a breath, a question pressed into stone. We think of gravity as constant, as the law that holds oceans to the shore and moons in orbit. But here, in this stretch of ancient rock and sky, it becomes a variable, a mystery carved into the crust. Beneath the moss and frozen lakes, something is different, and the earth, ever quiet, offers no answer. In the heart of the Sahara, where wind carves silence into dunes and the sun burns ancient shapes into stone, lie scattered fragments of something rare, something beautiful. Pieces of greenish-yellow glass, smooth to the touch, glint softly in the sand. They are not sharp or broken, but whole, as if poured and cooled by some unseen hand. This is Libyan desert glass. For centuries, nomads and travelers have stumbled upon it. Polished lumps of glass, some the size of a coin, others larger than a hand. To the untrained eye, they might appear like bits of colored quartz or melted crystal, but they are not formed like that. Their purity is unmatched, nearly 99% silica, clearer than most glass made by modern means. Some of these luminous stones were found inside the tomb of Tutankhamun, shaped into a scarab pendant set in gold, worn close to the heart of a king. Even in death, it seems, the ancient Egyptians recognized the strangeness and value of this desert-born glass. But how did it form? This is where the mystery deepens. The Sahara is not volcanic. There are no known lava flows or hot springs in the area where the glass is found, and the temperatures needed to melt sand into such pure glass exceed 1,600 degrees Celsius, hotter than any wildfire, hotter than the sunburned winds could ever reach. One theory suggests a meteor strike, a cosmic visitor arriving with such speed and force that it vaporized on impact, sending a shock wave through the ground that turned sand into molten glass in a flash. The absence of a visible crater puzzles scientists, but some speculate that if the meteor exploded in the air, a kind of atmospheric burst, it could still have caused such intense heat without leaving a permanent mark. Another theory, bolder still, whispers of something even more violent, a nuclear-like explosion, not man-made but natural, a rare event in which radioactive materials beneath the Earth's surface, under the right conditions, spontaneously ignite. Such natural fission reactions have occurred elsewhere in history, though on smaller scales. Could one have occurred here, long before recorded time? Or perhaps there was something else entirely, an unknown mechanism, lost to history, or not yet understood. A celestial event, a solar flare intensified by magnetic anomalies, or the result of something science has not yet dared to name. What remains is a glass, ancient, untouched, silent. It lies in a stretch of desert called the Great Sand Sea, an expanse so vast and still that the wind feels like memory. There are no ruins, no structures, no bones of lost civilizations to explain its origin, just the glass, glittering beneath centuries of shifting sand. Some believe it was gathered purposefully by ancient people, long before the Egyptians, that it was revered, used in rituals, worn as a connection to the sky. Others think it was left behind by chance, the Earth's quiet alchemy performed in an age when no one was watching. Even today, scientists debate. Microscopes reveal tiny bubbles, high-pressure minerals, traces of something violent and immediate. But the evidence points in many directions, and none with certainty. The desert gives no answers. It only keeps what it has made. So the glass remains, untouched in places too remote for most to reach, polished by time, humming with possibility, a relic of heat, light, and silence. We walk past such things every day. Stones that once were fire, sand shaped by something we cannot name. In the Sahara, this mystery is laid bare, half buried, catching sunlight in forgotten corners. And still, No one knows for sure how it came to be. Perhaps it was a falling star. Perhaps the breath of the earth. Perhaps something older. The wind moves. The glass waits. And the questions stay, glowing softly in the sand. Beneath the waters of the Arabian Sea, off the coast of Gujarat, India, something stirs in silence. Not fish or current, but the ghostly outline of walls, roads, geometric shapes no wave could sculpt. The sea floor here does not lie flat. It rises and dips in patterns too precise, too intentional, as if an entire city once stood, and now only its shadow remains. This is the underwater mystery that many believe to be ancient Dvarka, the legendary city of Krishna. In Hindu mythology, Dvarka was no ordinary city. It was said to have been built by the god Krishna himself, a city of golden towers, wide avenues, and majestic palaces. It glittered on the edge of the sea until one day, after Krishna's death, it was swallowed whole by the ocean. For centuries, it remained a myth, a story told through scripture, poetry, and belief. But in 2001, sonar scans conducted during a routine oceanographic survey revealed something unexpected. Beneath the waters, some 30 meters below the surface, lay rows of large rectangular formations. Stone blocks, straight alignments, right angles. Not randomness, but design. Not coral, but ruin. Divers were sent down. What they found deepened the mystery. Massive foundation stones, shaped and stacked, some stretching for hundreds of meters. Patterns in the seabed that resembled man-made structures, roads, embankments, platforms. And pottery shards embedded in the silt, brought up for testing. Carbon dating placed some of the artifacts at nearly 9,000 years old. If true, this would upend much of what is believed about the timeline of ancient Indian civilization. Dvarka, or whatever city once stood here, would predate the Indus Valley civilization by several thousand years. It would suggest a level of urban planning and architectural knowledge at a time when humans elsewhere were just beginning to build. Skeptics remain cautious. They argue that some of the formations could be natural rock patterns shaped by ocean currents. Others say the artifacts may have drifted from nearby settlements over millennia. The ocean is a restless archivist. It jumbles history. And yet, the shapes persist. The straight lines, the corners, the seabed off the Gulf of Kumbat does not feel random. Some researchers suggest that this might not be Dvarka itself, but a precursor, a now-lost civilization that may have inspired the legend. A city so ancient that memory became myth, and myth became scripture. If so, it means that what lies below the sea is not just a city, but a doorway into a forgotten chapter of humanity. India's ancient texts, like the Mahabharata, are rich with descriptions of celestial weapons, vast cities, and advanced knowledge. For centuries, scholars debated whether these were metaphors, exaggerations, or literal history. The discovery beneath the waves forces a reconsideration. Could the myths be rooted in something real? The water around the site is murky and the current strong. Visibility is low. Excavation is slow. And yet, each new sonar scan reveals more patterns, more anomalies, more questions. Why here? Why so deep? And why forgotten? The city or the memory of it rests quietly in the dark. Fish swim through what may once have been doorways. Coral now clings to stones carved by human hands. The sea has taken ownership, softening sharp lines, covering what once was life with layers of salt and time. Some believe it was a coastal city lost in a massive flood, perhaps one of many swallowed during the rapid sea level rise after the last ice age. Others think it was built in defiance of the ocean, too close to its edge, and paid the price. And some whisper that it was never meant to last, that its vanishing was part of design greater than any one civilization. For now, it remains submerged, waiting. Scientists continue to study. Pilgrims continue to believe. And somewhere beneath the waves, in the silence of ancient stone, an old story rests. A story told in the language of water and time, and things too deep to grasp all at once. Whether Dvarka or not, the city beneath the sea changes something. It shifts the boundary between history and myth. It reminds us that the earth keeps secrets, and that sometimes when the tide pulls back just right, those secrets shimmer through the murk, not to explain, but to awaken wonder. And so we watch the waves. And we wait. In museums and private collections across the world, there sit objects both beautiful and unsettling, human skulls, carved entirely from quartz crystal, smooth, translucent, impossibly detailed. Some are life-sized, others smaller. Their features are symmetrical, their surfaces flawless. These are the crystal skulls, artifacts whose origins are cloaked in confusion and contradiction. The most famous of them is the Mitchell-Hedges skull. It first appeared publicly in the 20th century, reportedly discovered in the 1920s in the ruins of a Mayan temple in Belize. Stories swirled that it had been found under a collapsed altar, that it possessed strange powers, that it could emit sound or store memory. Its jaw was hinged, cut separately but fitted so precisely it could open and close like a real human skull. It's made from a single block of clear quartz. Scientists who studied it were stunned. Modern crystal sculptors admit it will be difficult, even today, to replicate such precision. Under magnification, no tool marks are visible, no chisel lines, no trace of the carving process. In theory, ancient Mesoamerican cultures had the ability to carve stone, but not with this level of perfection, and certainly not from quartz, one of the hardest substances on Earth. So the debate began. Were these skulls genuine relics of pre-Columbian civilizations, or were they elaborate hoaxes, created much later and passed off as ancient to thrill collectors and mystics? Some experts trace the appearance of similar skulls to 19th century Europe, particularly in Paris, where antique dealers sold ancient crystal objects to eager buyers fascinated by the occult. Documents suggest that some of the skulls may have originated not in jungles, but in jewelry workshops. Yet others resist the hoax theory. They point to the lack of any consistent explanation. Some skulls differ wildly in design. Some contain strange internal prisms that bend light in unexpected ways. A few exhibit acoustic properties. When sound is played near them, they vibrate. Quartz is known for its ability to store and transmit energy. It's used in modern electronics, in watches, radios, memory chips. Could the crystal skulls have once served a purpose beyond art, beyond religion? Could they be remnants of an unknown technology? In some fringe circles, it is claimed that the skulls are tools, devices capable of recording consciousness, or amplifying sound, or channeling frequencies that alter perception. Some even believe they were left by an ancient civilization or a visitor from elsewhere. The skulls themselves offer no answers. They do not speak. They do not hum or glow or pulse, despite what legends suggest. But they endure. They captivate. They sit in silent defiance of easy explanation. Several are housed in major museums. The British Museum in London, the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., and the Musée du Quai Branly in Paris. These institutions often label them as modern forgeries, citing evidence of rotary wheel polishing, a method not used in antiquity. But not all skulls have been tested. Not all have been explained. The mystery deepens when examined from the lens of symbolism. Across ancient cultures, the skull was more than bone. It represented power, memory, the seed of the soul. Crystal, with its purity and durability, was seen as a conduit, a vessel for divine energy or eternal thought. Combining the two, the skull and the crystal, might have been more than art. It might have been intention. Even if they are modern creations, they still evoke something timeless, something unsettling. They are the face of death rendered in the most lifeless material, and yet somehow they seem to watch. Each skull is slightly different. Some grin, some frown. Some are smooth and serene, others raw and eerie. They reflect light in shifting ways, as if hiding something just beneath their surface. A memory, perhaps a message, or maybe just the echo of the hand that made them. We don't know where they came from. We don't know who made them. We don't even know why. But there remain dozens of them, scattered across continents, separated by oceans and belief, yet strangely united, as if part of a pattern we've yet to understand. Were they offerings? Were they tools? Were they warnings? In the end, the crystal skulls sit quietly, asking nothing. But their silence is not empty. It is loaded with questions that still hum through glass cases and collector shelves, through books and broadcasts and whispered stories. They wait, not to be believed, but to be remembered. In the grand sweep of history, time feels solid, a march from past to present, year stacked upon year, century atop century. Calendars give us order. Chronology gives us meaning. But what if some of it wasn't real? The phantom time hypothesis is one of the strangest theories to ever slip into the cracks of history. It suggests that a chunk of our past, nearly 300 years between 614 and 911 AD, simply didn't happen. That these centuries were fabricated, inserted into the timeline not by natural error, but by design. According to this hypothesis, we are not living in the year 2025. We are living in the 18th century. The theory originates with a man named Herbert Illig, a German historian and revisionist thinker. In the 1990s, Illig published research that questioned the authenticity of events in early medieval Europe. He pointed out gaps, long stretches of time with little documented change, few major innovations, and oddly consistent political structures. He proposed something radical, that much of the early Middle Ages, particularly the period between the fall of the Roman Empire and the rise of the Holy Roman Empire, was invented, fabricated, inserted retroactively into history. Illig claimed that Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII conspired to rewrite history, to place themselves closer to the symbolic year 1000 AD, a year of prophetic and religious importance. By adding centuries, they not only extended their legacy, but anchored their rule in a new millennium. It sounds absurd, but then the silence of those centuries lingers. Between 614 and 911 AD, the historical record becomes unusually thin. Europe appears to sleep. Few buildings rise. Few battles are recorded. Major cultural shifts stall. The Carolingian dynasty, including the figure of Charlemagne, one of Europe's most legendary rulers, emerges like a myth with questionable documentation and oddly sparse archaeological evidence. The question is not just what happened, but whether anything did. Supporters of the hypothesis point to calendar inconsistencies. When Julius Caesar introduced the Julian calendar, it was slightly flawed, off by about 11 minutes per year. Over centuries, this would have accumulated. Yet by the time Pope Gregory XIII introduced the Gregorian calendar in 1582, the drift was not as significant as expected. A missing 300 years could explain the discrepancy. Skeptics, of course, offer counterarguments. They point to Chinese, Islamic, and other independent chronologies that align with the traditional timeline. They argue that just because the record is sparse doesn't mean the years were fabricated. Only that much was lost, destroyed, or never documented. Dark ages, after all, are called dark for a reason. But then there's the archaeological puzzle. In many parts of Europe, layers of construction, habitation, and burial align with the centuries before and after the Phantom period. Yet some digs seem to leapfrog. A Roman layer, then suddenly a medieval one. The supposed gap in between is quiet, suspiciously so. Could it be that those centuries were never lived, only imagined? Or is it simply a quirk of survival, that the artifacts of that era decayed, were erased by war or lost with passage of time? The phantom time hypothesis also forces a broader question. How do we know what century we live in? How fragile is the architecture of timekeeping? We trust scrolls, stones, coins, carbon dating, but all are open to interpretation, to error, to deceit. History, after all, is not a stream of facts. It is a story told by those who survived, and stories can be changed. Even now, regimes edit history books. Borders shift. Names are erased. Entire civilizations become footnotes. What if the same happened on a larger scale? What if the past was edited, not erased, but quietly extended? Would we know? Could we know? The phantom time hypothesis does not enjoy mainstream support. Most historians reject it outright. And yet, it remains like a sliver in the collective mind. Unproven, unprovable, but unsettling. It invites us to question time itself, to look at the years we accept as truth and ask, who counted them, and for what purpose? If even one century can be fabricated, then the foundation of our history trembles. Our calendars, our dynasties, our sense of progress. It's not just about 300 missing years. It's about the idea that time, the very structure that gives our lives direction, can be manipulated, bent, invented. The phantom time hypothesis may never be proven, but like a whisper behind the ticking of every clock, it lingers, not shouting, just asking. The house was ordinary, tucked away in the small village of Belmez de la Moralita in southern Spain, a quiet place surrounded by olive groves and time-worn hills, the kind of town where life passed slowly and stories stayed local. But in 1971, a woman named Maria Gomez Camar noticed something strange on her kitchen floor. A face, not a clear one at first, just a shadow, a smudge in the concrete. But it grew clearer over the days. Eyes, a nose, the curve of a mouth, not painted, not carved, just there. Then it moved, and then another appeared. Maria was frightened. Her family tried scrubbing the face away, then digging out entirely and laying fresh cement. But the face came back, slightly changed, and then more joined it. Within weeks, the kitchen floor was host to a gallery of expressions, some mournful, some angry, some indistinct, others disturbingly human. Each face emerged slowly, sometimes overnight, then faded or morphed as if the floor itself was alive. Word spread quickly. Neighbors came, then journalists, paranormal researchers, scientists. The phenomenon became known as the Belmez faces, a haunting that didn't howl or slam doors, but stared back from the very floor beneath your feet. What made it different was that these weren't stories whispered at night. They were visible, physical. You could stand over them, photograph them, watch them change over time. The town became a kind of pilgrimage site for the curious and the skeptical alike. Investigators began arriving, some with cameras, others with chemicals, infrared scanners, X-rays. Theories piled up. Perhaps someone had painted the faces in secret, but no pigment was found, no brush marks, no forgeries. Independent observers documented the transformations, faces shifting expression, new ones appearing in different parts of the house. Some speculated it was a hoax, a family seeking attention. But the Gomez family never charged for visits. They never embraced celebrity. In fact, Maria found the phenomenon disturbing. She tried to have the faces removed. Again and again they returned. Psychics came next. They claimed the house sat atop an ancient burial site, that the faces were echoes of unrest, spirits trying to speak through the stone. Excavations beneath the kitchen found old bones. Some believed this confirmed the theory. Others said bones were common in such ancient villages, relics of unmarked graves, not necessarily tied to faces. As the decades passed, the house was monitored under controlled conditions. Even sealed rooms produced new faces. Some were caught in the early stages, just faint impressions, growing clearer with time. Scientists couldn't explain the chemical composition. There was no known reaction, no heat, no moisture, no organic material to create the images. They simply existed and evolved. A few faces resembled portraits from nearby cemeteries. Others didn't resemble anyone in the village. One seemed skeletal. Another almost smiled. Most held a solemn, eerie neutrality, like watchers. One hypothesis was that the images were a form of autography, impressions formed by intense human emotion, perhaps Maria's own subconscious etched into the concrete. But that idea, too, couldn't explain consistency, the detail, the duration. Skeptics clung to the possibility of fraud, even suggesting it was a kind of collective delusion. But no one could reproduce the effect elsewhere. Attempts to replicate the phenomenon using chemicals or heat produced crude, obvious forgeries. Never the haunting, subtle realism of the Belmez faces. Maria died in 2004. Some thought the faces would stop. But even after her passing, new ones continued to appear. A few visitors reported feeling watched. A few claimed to hear whispers. Most just stared at the floor, trying to decipher the emotions frozen in cement. Eventually, the house was declared a national paranormal site, not a museum, not a shrine, just a place where the line between the physical and the mysterious had blurred. The Belmez faces remain. Scientists still can't explain them. Artists can't recreate them. Skeptics can't dismiss them. They're just there, silent, slow-moving, persistent, watching, changing, waiting. What does it mean when stone remembers a face? When walls don't whisper, but watch? When the ground beneath your home starts wearing expressions you don't recognize? The Belmez faces never gave an answer. They only asked questions. At the distant North Pole of Saturn, a planet of swirling storms and majestic rings, there lies a phenomenon that puzzles scientists and stargazers alike, a geometric marvel spinning in the planet's turbulent atmosphere. It is a vast hexagon, a six-sided jet stream, locked in place above the swirling clouds below. Discovered in 1981 by the Voyager spacecraft, the Saturn hexagon stretches nearly 20,000 miles across, wide enough to fit nearly 4 Earths side by side. Its sides are sharp and straight, forming a shape that seems more architectural than meteorological. A polygon carved not in stone, but in swirling gas thousands of miles above Saturn's cloud tops. The hexagon rotates at roughly 10 hours and 39 minutes per cycle, matching Saturn's internal rotation speed. It is a persistent feature, observed consistently through decades of spacecraft missions, including the Cassini probe, which captured stunning images revealing the hexagon's depth and vivid colors. What makes the hexagon extraordinary is not just its shape, but its stability. On Earth, storms and jet streams curve and meander, forming spirals, ovals, or chaotic patterns. But on Saturn, this six-sided figure spins without changing, its edges crisp, its corners precise. Scientists have proposed explanations rooted in fluid dynamics and planetary atmospheres. Laboratory experiments with rotating fluids have produced polygonal patterns under certain conditions. Some suggest that Saturn's unique rotation rate, temperature gradients, and atmospheric composition create a standing wave that forms the hexagon. Yet, despite these models, the exact cause remains elusive. Why a hexagon? Why 6 sides? And why does it hold its form so perfectly, enduring storms and seasonal shifts? The hexagon also contains a mysterious eye, a massive vortex at its center, resembling a hurricane with winds exceeding 300 miles per hour. Unlike Earth storms, this eye is stable, deep, and immense, a perfect circle nestled inside the polygonal frame. This striking contrast, the geometric sharpness of the hexagon against the swirling chaos of the central storm, deepens the enigma. Some speculate that the hexagon is a natural resonance, a kind of planetary note held steady by Saturn's rotation. Others suggest it's a glimpse into deeper physical processes within the planet, clues to internal heat flows or magnetic field interactions. The hexagon has inspired not only scientific study, but also poetic reflection. A shape so precise, so rare in nature, carved into clouds of gas and ice crystals. A reminder that even in the wild turbulence of the cosmos, order can emerge, patterns can persist, geometry can dance in storm. Observing the hexagon challenges how we think about weather, not just as random or chaotic, but as a system capable of complex, self-organizing structures. It also invites wonder at the differences between worlds. Earth's storms spin in spirals and swirls, unpredictable and fleeting. Saturn's storm spins a 6-sided figure, perfect and eternal. The Saturn hexagon reminds us that nature's palette is broader than we imagine, that patterns exist beyond our experience, waiting to be seen. That planets, like art, hold surprises. And as telescopes and probes continue to watch from afar, the hexagon spins on, a cosmic jewel etched in clouds, endlessly turning, a shape in a gas storm, a mystery locked in the sky. Nestled quietly on the grounds outside the Central Intelligence Agency headquarters in Langley, Virginia, stands a sculpture both elegant and enigmatic. It is called Cryptis, a twisting, abstract form of copper and stone, designed by artist Jim Sanborn and installed in 1990. But Cryptis is more than art. It is a puzzle, a coded message carved into metal, challenging the world's greatest minds to decipher its secrets. The sculpture contains 4 encrypted passages. 3 have been solved over the years, revealing cryptic phrases referencing espionage, history, and nature. Each decoded section offers tantalizing clues, but also raises new questions. The 4th section, however, remains a mystery. Over 3 decades have passed, and the final code resists every attempt to break it. What makes Cryptis so compelling is not just complexity of its cipher, but the layers of meaning embedded within. It is a conversation between the artist and the intelligence community, a game played with language, mathematics, and the very nature of secrecy. The solved parts speak of a journey through knowledge and discovery. One segment references a hidden island with silence and snow. Another hints at the elusive shadow. The words seem poetic, but there are also clues, pieces of a larger narrative still concealed. Sambord himself has provided occasional hints, emphasizing that the final section is solvable but challenging. He has revealed small fragments of the key, encouraging codebreakers not to give up. Yet no one has unlocked the full message. Some believe the unresolved code contains truths too sensitive for public eyes. Others think it is a clever trick, meant only to tease. Some speculate it holds the coordinates of a secret location or the name of a covert operation. Others say it's simply art, a puzzle with no real secret, designed to inspire and perplex. Over the years, thousands of amateurs, professionals, and cryptologists have tried. Online forums buzz with theories. Algorithms run endlessly on supercomputers. Yet Cryptis guards its silence. The sculpture itself invites reflection on the nature of secrecy, on what is revealed and what remains hidden. It stands as a symbol of the tension between transparency and privacy, between curiosity and caution. In an age when information flows freely, Cryptis reminds us that some knowledge is layered, coded, and protected. That understanding often requires patience, insight, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. Its presence outside the CIA is fitting. The very heart of American intelligence, a place where secrets are currency. Cryptis is both a tribute and a challenge. To find what is hidden, to decode the inscrutable, to step beyond the surface. And so it waits, silent, unyielding, a riddle etched in copper, a puzzle as enduring as the quest for truth itself. In the early hours of March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 took off from Kuala Lumpur, bound for Beijing. A routine flight, carrying 239 souls across the sky. But somewhere over the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean, the plane vanished, not with a crash or a distress call, but with eerie silence. For months, search teams scoured thousands of square miles of ocean. Aircraft, ships, satellites, all searching for debris, for signs, for answers. But the sea yielded nothing. No wreckage, no black boxes, no messages. The plane's transponder had gone silent almost an hour after takeoff. Its last voice from the cockpit was calm, unremarkable. Then nothing. What followed was a mystery that gripped the world. The disappearance of Flight 370 remains one of the greatest aviation enigmas of the 21st century. Theories abound. Some suggest mechanical failure. Others hint at hijacking, sabotage, or pilot suicide. Yet no definitive evidence has emerged to confirm any theory. Ocean currents, unpredictable and shifting, complicated the search. Satellite images picked up possible debris fields, but many turned out to be unrelated flotsam or natural debris. The depths of the ocean, reaching over 5,000 meters in the search area, pose enormous challenges for recovery. Even more puzzling were the flight's final movements. Radar and satellite data suggested the plane had turned west, flying far off its planned course, for hours after losing contact. Why? Where was it going? What was happening on board? Despite multiple international search efforts, the main wreckage remains undiscovered. A few fragments washed ashore on distant islands, confirm the plane did crash, but the core mystery endures. Families wait still, suspended in grief and unanswered questions. The aviation industry scrutinizes the case, adjusting safety protocols and technology to prevent future disappearances. But the sea remains indifferent, holding its secrets beneath waves and pressure. Flight 370's vanishing challenges not only technology but trust, in systems designed to keep passengers safe, in networks built to track and communicate, in our ability to find the lost. It is a reminder how vast and unknowable the world still is, of how silence can be louder than any message, of how the sky and sea together can swallow truth whole. The plane vanished, not just physically, but into a void of uncertainty. And in the endless ocean, where light fades and time stretches, it waits. Silent, unfound, a ghost of flight, forever traveling through the dark. Consciousness, the shimmering thread of awareness that weaves through our experience, remains one of the deepest mysteries humanity has ever faced. We live inside it, surrounded by it, yet its nature eludes clear understanding. What is it exactly that makes I possible? Why does the flicker of awareness arise in the dance of neurons, chemicals, and electric pulses? Scientists have searched for answers for centuries, and in recent decades, technology has given us glimpses into the brain's workings like never before. Neurons fire, networks connect, patterns emerge. Yet the core question, why these physical processes give rise to subjective experience, remains unresolved. Some propose that consciousness is simply the product of neural activity, an emergent property of complex systems. The brain, like an orchestra, creates a symphony that we call self-awareness. But this view struggles to explain why that symphony feels like anything at all. Others look beyond the brain, into the realm of quantum mechanics. Theories like orchestrated objective reduction suggest that tiny quantum processes inside neurons contribute to consciousness, linking mind and matter at a fundamental level. These ideas are controversial, speculative, yet tantalizing. Then there are those who argue that consciousness is an illusion, a narrative constructed by the brain to make sense of itself, that the self is not a fixed entity, but a continuous story told by neurons firing in sequence. This challenges our sense of identity, but offers a lens to interpret the paradox. Philosophers have wrestled with the hard problem of consciousness, why and how physical processes produce subjective experience. It is a problem that touches on science, philosophy, spirituality, and personal introspection. Neuroscientists map brain activity during perception, memory, and decision-making. Psychologists study awareness and attention, yet none have fully captured what it feels like to be conscious, the raw, intimate, irreducible experience of being. Some ancient traditions see consciousness not as confined to the brain, but as a universal field, a fundamental aspect of existence that transcends time and space. In this view, individual awareness is a ripple on a vast ocean of mind, connecting all life. Modern science has yet to reconcile these views. Every breakthrough, every hypothesis, opens new doors, new questions. Is consciousness local or non-local, continuous or discrete, a byproduct or a fundamental reality? This infinite mirror reflects back not just questions about the brain, but about ourselves, who we are, what it means to exist. And in this reflection, we glimpse the most intimate mystery, one that no microscope can fully reveal, no equation can fully solve. We are conscious, we are aware, and that awareness itself is the beginning of wonder. In the quiet moments before sleep, when the world softens and the mind begins to drift, there is a special space, a place where mystery lives. It is not found in books or lectures, nor in the certainty of answers. Instead, it resides in a vast unknown that stretches beyond what we see, measure, and understand. Throughout our journey, we have traveled deserts where stones whisper secrets lost to time, dived into oceans that hold creatures stranger than dreams, and gazed upward at stars that refuse to be fully known. We have walked the lines etched by ancient hands, heard the songs of solitary whales, and pondered codes carved in metal and glass. Science has gifted us with maps of the visible world, charts of planets and atoms, and explanations that unravel complexity into clarity. Yet, alongside this great illumination, darkness remains, not as absence, but as invitation. Mystery is not a failure of knowledge. It is its complement, the window through which wonder enters. It reminds us that every discovery leads to new questions. Every solved puzzle opens fresh enigmas. It is the heartbeat of curiosity, the breath that keeps exploration alive. In embracing mystery, we recognize the limits of our understanding. Not with despair, but with humility. We stand on the edge of the known and peer into the depths beyond, where imagination dances with possibility. As night deepens and eyes close, we surrender to this space. We do not fall into certainty, but into wonder, a wonder that connects us to those who came before, to ancient builders, to stargazers, to seekers who listened to the silence and heard something stirring. Mystery is a thread that binds us across time, place, and mind. It lives in the stones beneath our feet and the stars overhead, in the silent pulse of the universe, It whispers that the journey is never truly complete. And as we drift into dreams, that whisper becomes a song of the infinite, a place where mystery lives.